Well, this is actually a perfect segue into a reading series for this week, and I'm going to use this one specifically.
The other mealy mouth piece of shit propaganda.
Yeah, well, we're moving. We're moving. This is a lateral move from just abominable institutions of of the liberal press that are just god awful in every respect. Moving from the Washington Post editorial page to the New York Times. And the reading series designed to hit all of Felix's anger and pleasure centers at the same time.
I'm remaining calm,
normal.
I'm feeling.
He's already riled. That's the thing.
I'm feeling good. It's like I know what this is. It's our boy Tommy, but it's like I kind of, you know what? I don't have the hate for Tommy that I do for like Fred Hyatt because Tommy legitimately believes this shit.
Yeah,
he's that fucking stupid.
He is a golden retriever.
Tommy, for those of you who don't know, Tom Friedman got his career got its start because anyone who looked at him in the Times in like the 70s and 80s was like, okay, this guy's a fucking idiot. And they sent him to Lebanon because they just assumed no one would care what happened there.
Yeah, he steps on a mine, big deal.
Yeah, right, nothing. But
that's what I would do.
Then the Lebanese Civil War, it becomes a big story, and Tom Friedman's the Lebanon guy, even though he just he chews pennies.
There you go. Looks can get you everywhere.
Yeah. Tom Friedman's a fucking thought.
Well, Felix, you're going to have to explain this because I read this article and it filled me with hope. And it sounds like
this is not
reform is on the march.
It's not going to work on me. I'm remaining calm.
All right, let's hear it.
This is Thomas Friedman. Saudi Arabia's Arab Spring at last. The Crown Prince has big plans for his society. Now, before I get into reading this article, people dragged this bullshit a lot when it came out, but not nearly as much as they did the sort of stupid profile of that neo-Nazi guy.
Yeah,
in
people
Ohio.
shit out their arguments.
People
over that
went
one.
insane over that one, which I thought was not nearly as nauseating as this one.
It was a shitty article, but the guy wasn't trying to whitewash a Nazi. He clearly thought this was still the 90s and people would take white supremacist or white nationalism as prima facie bad.
Yeah,
but he just didn't. He wasn't with the times.
He thought that the kind of contrast between the guy's views but his banal details would be like chilling, sort of a Hannah Arendt thing.
Yeah,
and it was just like we've seen this a million times.
Yeah, and this
isn't fucking shocking anymore. There's no point to this existing.
And he didn't follow. He kind of took like their word on things and didn't really follow like what the logical through line of their policies would be. But, people will forget about it. There'll be another article about there'll be a think piece about texting that everyone will yell about. But you really want to talk about an evil article humanizing someone.
Okay, this is
so Arabs,
someone with
Saudi
actual
Arabia's,
fucking power in the world.
Saudi Arabia's Arab Spring. That sounds good. Arab Spring got rid of those autocrats.
Yeah, it was pretty,
Okay, so
pretty successful at that.
Let's dive into
Thomas
I feel great. Friedman. Like I said, there are business experts, there are mindset experts. Thomas Friedman's like what I like to call a world expert.
Yeah.
He knows that it's flat.
Yeah.
I'm what you call a motherfucking Renaissance man. That's Thomas Friedman.
Mr. Worldwide himself.
He knows, there's the fox and the hedgehog, right? The hedgehog knows one big thing, and the fox knows
they're
many
called
little
Sonic
things.
and Tails.
Okay,
that's good. Just continue.
Yeah, here's Thomas Friedman. I never thought I'd live long enough to write this sentence. I hoped you wouldn't, Thomas. I sincerely hoped you wouldn't. But any sentence. Okay, this sentence. The most significant reform process underway anywhere in the Middle East today is in Saudi Arabia. Yes, you read that right. Though I came here at the start of the Saudi winter. I found it's only 113 degrees outside. I came here at the start of Saudi winter. I found the country going through its own Arab Spring, Saudi style. He's writing this.
Yeah. That's my favorite Police Academy movie, by the way. Arab Spring, Saudi style.
Unlike other Arab Springs, all of which emerged bottom up and failed miserably, except in Tunisia.
Yeah, head down, bottom up. That's why I like to Arab Spring.
This one is led from the top down.
Mohammed bin Salman is hitting the back walls. He's a big daddy top.
This revolution is being topped from the bottom.
I'm getting top in the Davos forum. #gender.
Well, actually, this article is him giving top to Mohammed bin Salman,
Yes.
for sure. The country's 32-year-old crown prince. I mean, once again, it's depressing to find out another person younger than I am. What the fuck?
Yeah, I know. What are you doing, man?
I'm 5 years younger than Crown Prince Mohammed. I think I got some time.
I'm older than him, and I haven't killed a single Yemeni. I feel like a piece of shit.
So it goes, and if it succeeds, it will not only change the character of Saudi Arabia, but the tone and tenor of Islam across the globe. Only a fool would predict its success, or indeed, write glowingly about it in the first place. But he says, but only a fool would not root for it. To better understand it, I flew to Riyadh to interview the Crown Prince, known as MBS, who has not spoken about the extraordinary events here of early November.
That's Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah.
I know
you.
that. I know
Thank you.
that from you talking about it.
That's right.
I'm learning.
An
see?
educator and a gentleman.
When his government arrested scores of Saudi princes and businessmen on charges of corruption and threw them into a makeshift gilded jail, the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton, until they agreed to surrender their ill-gotten gains. You don't see that every day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, none of his side of the family, none of their gains are ill-gotten. It was really coincidental that the people he threw in prison were like, in hotel prison, were a guy that controlled the Saudi National Guard, which is one of the institutions that they fear is one of the only competent national military institutions, even though it's sort of a still shit military body, and a guy who owned a media body in Al-Walid bin Talal. It's very coincidental.
You just never see a regime leader neutralize leaders of opposing potential power vectors.
you know what?
You never see that.
And also, there was a very coincidental helicopter crash that day.
Yeah.
So
I just wish he was around in 1979 to be. Saddam Hussein has made an unusually bold power move at his party's conference today.
He's doing some sort
he
of
took
team building exercise with grenades.
there's a lot of trust falls.
Yeah.
But he goes here, we met...
Saddam's sons are budding filmmakers.
I don't get it.
It's funny, trust me.
We met at night at his family's ornate adobe-walled palace in, I'm going to call it Ouija,
Who cares?
north of Riyadh. MBS spoke in English, while his brother, Prince Khalid, the new Saudi ambassador to the U.S., and several senior ministers shared different lamb dishes and spiced the conversation.
God, these guys are obsessed. The fucking asshole guy with the Nazi article did the same thing. They're obsessed with these guys eating.
Well,
Who fucking cares?
I appreciate as a writer myself that double meaning to the word spice there.
It's like in those fantasy books about.
It's like George R.R. Martin, he always takes effort to detail everything, all the eel pies.
Yeah,
But spice, as in the food is spicy, as we know, but they spiced the conversation, like sprinkled details.
Oh,
of
that's
that.
why he's got a Pulitzer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like in the what's the fantasy series about the mouse who's also a knight? Redwall, where they're like,
Hell yes.
They're like,
how many Brian Jock fans are out there?
He ate his good rustic bread with a nice jam, and that's the New York Times in-house style, is to write like you're writing about little cute
little
mice.
fancy, cute little.
But it's also racist.
Well,
you
let's
know?
hear more about this food.
After unfortunately, there is no more about the food. After nearly 4 hours together, I surrendered at 1:15 a.m. to MBS's youth, pointing out that I was exactly twice his age. Ugh. It's been a long, long time, though, since any Arab leader wore me out with a fire hose of new ideas about transforming his country.
I need to get my stomach pumped after.
That's not an actual line from this.
Yes, it really is.
How did I not see this before?
DJ
It's been a while since a young Arab leader cream pied me with his ideas.
DJ,
Not real.
run that back.
Oh my God.
Run that back. It's been a long time, though, since any Arab leader wore me out with a fire hose of new ideas about transforming his country. Folks, that's the Thomas Friedman mixed metaphor. A+. That is the Thomas Friedman signature move.
I was worn out by 1 a.m. by this young bear of a man.
So,
Oh my God, he's a fucking master. You can't even imitate his mixed metaphor style.
He's astounding.
he wore out by a fire
He got
hose.
wore out by a fire hose.
Classic thing that happens.
So he goes on and he says here, he goes, It's ludicrous, he said, to suggest that the anti-corruption campaign was a power grab.
Thinking I was talking about the rapper, he immediately gestured to his slave.
He pointed out that many prominent members of the Ritz crowd had already publicly pledged allegiance to him and his reforms, and that a majority of the royal family is already behind him. This is what happened, he said. Our country has suffered from a lot of corruption from the 1980s until today.
They're pretty high on the corruption index in The Economist.
Yeah, 100%.
The calculation of our experts is that roughly 10% of all government spending was siphoned off by corruption each year.
Isn't it like
from the
100,
top
though?
levels to the
No,
bottom?
because it's one family owns all the oil. That sounds like 100%.
Right. So when his father, who had been tainted by corruption charges during his nearly 5 decades as governor of Riyadh, ascended to the throne in 2015 at a time of falling oil prices, he vowed to put a stop to it all. MBS said, "My father saw that there is no way we can stay in the G20 and grow with this level of corruption."
Yeah, that's the problem. Not that oil is not long for this world is the primary fuel for vehicles, or that your other chief export is like Instagram comments. It's corruption.
Well, that's why they need to diversify.
Don't forget Wahhabism.
Right. Oh, right. Yes.
Well, no, they get into that. So he basically just prints verbatim all of MBS's statement about how this anti-corruption campaign is going splendidly and is not at all about consolidating his own power. So he goes, and then he gets in and he goes, there is no way to root out all the corruption from top to bottom. So you have to send a signal, and the signal going forward now is you will not escape.
That's also the signal we send to all migrant workers, Yemenis.
Yeah, so we take their passports.
People in the East Asia provinces.
Most women.
Provinces.
Yeah.
Any black person
So
we
you go-
see at all, ever.
The stakes are high for MBS. He calls him MBS this entire article.
Because it's cool.
He spent billions of dollars on a bullshit war that didn't work.
So he goes, the stakes are high for MBS in this anti-corruption drive. If the public feels that he is truly purging corruption that was sapping the system and doing it so in a way that is transparent and makes clear to future Saudi and foreign investors that rule of law will prevail, it will really instill a lot of new confidence in the system. And then he qualifies this by going, but it could go otherwise.
That's why he's the best. It's like, most writers, they won't admit that things can go two ways. But Tom Friedman will say something can go two ways, but he'll say the forklift of progress can always run into, like the hula hoop of
A reaction. Yeah.
Isn't honestly, if we wanted to look at this from like a geopolitical power politics perspective, doesn't this whole sort of neoliberalism that BHS or BSO BMI is carrying off here, doesn't that just make it all just look like a giant basically attempt to buy himself out of the doghouse for being the world's leading exporter of terror and solidify his Western alliances against Iran? Because they're saying, hey, you want to buy stock in Aramco? Huh? You want to live in my floating topiary city on the Red Sea? And it's like these are incentives to sort of solidify those bonds in the face of Iran.
Well, I mean, everything they've done, even when Mohammed bin Salman was deputy crown prince, there was like a sort of turn before that, like when they turned on the Muslim Brotherhood and basically just fucking dumped a dump truck full of gold bars on LCC to wipe them out. Mm-hmm. And, the secret contacts that have been going on with Israel since pretty much the start of the Syrian civil war. But, I mean, this, what's going on now? It's like a more overt play of what they were already pivoting to. But Mohammed bin Salman, what Friedman won't mention is that Mohammed bin Salman's like kind of fucking dumb.
Oh, he's been hilariously bad at all this like shit, all this scheming stuff.
So Yemen was his project, and they expected to invade Yemen with Pakistan's army, and they were like, "We're good, like honestly, we're good, man." And so, like, their only way out now is to make a deal with Saleh, the ex-president, who they were in part fighting against all this time, and to like hope that he turns his back on the Houthis, which he may do. And what they just did in Lebanon, I don't know if Friedman gets to that at all.
He does. I mean, well, he said he
united the entire country behind their prime minister, who they actually fucking hate. He turned Lebanon into just a unified country. Every sect going like, give us back our shitty, dumbass prime minister we hate.
I'm gonna jump ahead now because
Welcome to the resistance.
he does mention it, but only to say that MBS wouldn't comment on the strange goings on with Prime Minister
Good journalism.
of
Really
Lebanon
killing it.
coming
Did
to
he
Saudi
bring up
Arabia.
the thing that they've got apparently Blackwater guys beating the shit out of these fucking dudes in the Hilton?
Well, that was Daily Mail, so
Oh, that's not true?
it may be. It may be. I mean, like they do use. Like,
Well, I mean, they are getting tortured. Come on.
oh yeah, but the torture is like they show them a sexy woman in a bikini, and they're like, you cannot comment. Come to Riyadh.
How are they?
And they're like, no.
Matt, they wouldn't torture them.
Oh, here's a picture of a maid from Malaysia doing her job without getting threatened.
Matt, you're not going to torture family.
That's right.
So
Your family.
I mean, like, I'm going to jump around here, but like, he goes on to talk about how like actually the most important thing he's doing is not anti-corruption, but reforming Islam. And he goes here. It is if this virus, this is Friedman again, if this virus of an anti-pluralistic, misogynistic Islam that came out of Saudi Arabia in 1979 can be reversed by Saudi Arabia, it would drive moderation across the Muslim world and surely be welcome here where 65% of the population is under 30. So he's like, yeah, all of the people who used religious fundamentalism as like a tool to advance their agenda and create like in conjunction with America, create like this, wave of political Islam to counter Arab nationalism and socialism in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
And also to hit at regional enemies well outside of the
yeah,
Cold
exactly.
War.
If the people who introduced this in conjunction with America, as he calls it, the virus of this. He never mentions Wahhabism by name in a single time. He does not know the word Wahhabism does not appear anywhere in this article.
If there's anything about like a violent reactionary strand of a belief, it's as easy as it is to get rid of it as it is to spread it. Like once it's spread, it's very easy to control.
It's the example of
Sorry, he actually does mention Wahhabi clerics.
It's the example of Pandora's box. You open the box and all the bad things happen. All you gotta do is put it all back in the box. Close the box.
Exactly.
Just close the box.
Frankly, and I like that.
Shut that nut.
I like that detail of like what 65% of the country is under 30. That means they're very impressionable. They've got different interests from the older ruling class. They like Snapchat. This is the Snapchat generation, if you will.
You know who isn't at all the most organized group in the entire country outside of the royal family? It's certainly not people who are even more religiously hardline than them. This is going to go
I
great.
think what they can do is they can get this guy, Brandon Wardell, and bring him to Syria and say, guys, this is a different way. You can do something else.
Aux cord DJing for freedom.
Just a few other tidbits here. Thomas recites, he goes, the Saudi education minister chimed in that among a broad set of education reforms, he's redoing and digitizing all textbooks.
Oh, hell yeah.
Great, man.
Sending 1,700 Saudi teachers each year to world-class schools in places like Finland to upgrade their skills, announcing that for the first time, Saudi girls will have physical education classes in public schools, and this year adding an hour to the Saudi school day for kids to explore their passions in science and social issues under a teacher's supervision with their own projects. So they're adding gym class, and they're going to have iPads in Saudi schools now.
That sounds
that
pretty
was
good.
in class for
we
girls.
should have
These
that.
fucking the iPad in the school thing is just it's the
One of the
fucking-
dumbest fucking
But it's
things.
also for guys like Friedman. It is
It's a panacea.
It is like Spanish fly. It's like they get a whiff of it and they're just wet. They get so moist over just the words. Fucking computer in the classroom. They think that's the solution to every fucking thing.
Kids are going to be like, oh boy, an iPad? I'm going to
Yeah.
go to Wikipedia and learn everything. I'm
Yeah.
starting with the letter A.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Aardvark.
yeah. No, it's just, they're just going to, Google, they're just going to type in like sexporn.com.
A ratchet fight video.
They're gonna
record themselves and their friends beating up some girl at the local mall and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think...
they're gonna try to get their dads to resurrect Lil Peep.
I think a lot of them are, going to become gamers. There's some great games on the Apple Store.
It's just I just imagine them handing out.
The Saudi Hearthstone team is going to look out for them in next season.
I think having the e-reader in the classroom there must be like when Ned Flanders showed Homer his cable TV package. It's like 1,500 channels, all blocked.
Oh yeah, I just thought of a good Saudi game. It's a variation on Counter-Strike. You play as the French commandos that raided the Grand Mosque during the seizure in '79, but you only have 5 minutes before your temporary conversion to Islam wears out.
Wait, you can get boosters. You can get like
Islam
passages
boosters.
of the Quran and collect them.
Loot crates with passages from the Quran to keep your gaming going.
Oh man, I was talking about that with somebody, I forget where, but we were saying that like for the 5 minutes the French guys were Muslims. They were like what if one of their friends died, and they're like, we all thought we would get out of this mission and be able to draw Muhammad again.
Well,
it was so hard for us not to draw Muhammad for those 10 minutes.
Well, there was
and
a big
the surviving commandos founded Charlie Hebdo.
But there was a big controversy about loot crates because all you can get are skins of the Prophet Muhammad.
So when they get to
That's a gaming joke.
No, I get that. Sadly,
When they-
it's leached in.
As I mentioned earlier, when they get to foreign policy, MBS says he won't comment on Prime Minister Hariri of Lebanon coming to Saudi
amazing journalism.
Saudi Arabia and announcing his resignation, seemingly under pressure. So here's where it gets really revolting. He insisted that the Saudi-backed war in Yemen, which has been a humanitarian nightmare,
Not a deliberate famine.
like when Thomas Friedman put the word humanitarian in front of nightmare, but I think like he really was thinking public relations nightmare instead of humanitarian.
I'm like, oh boy, they gotta spin this one.
It's
It
like,
says, which has been a humanitarian nightmare, was tilting in the direction of the pro-Saudi legitimate government there, which he said is now in control of 85% of the country.
it wasn't. It wasn't at all.
So he goes, but given the fact that pro-Iranian Houthi rebels who hold the rest launched a missile at Riyadh airport, anything less than 100% is still problematic. Anything less than
So he can
100%
only-
control.
And he can only pitch it towards the safety of these inbred shitheads in Riyadh, not the literally millions of people who are starving to death and getting medieval diseases.
Here's where
again.
so he goes, his general view seemed to be that with the backing of the Trump administration, he praised President Trump as the right person at the right time.
The dumbest motherfucker.
The Saudis and their Arab allies were slowly building a he doesn't mention their Israeli allies either, but he goes, we're slowly building a coalition to stand up to Iran. I am skeptical. The dysfunction and rivalries within the Sunni Arab world generally have prevented forming a unified front up to now, which is why Iran indirectly controls 4 Arab capitals today: Damascus, Sana'a, Baghdad, and Beirut. The Iranian overreach is one reason MBS was scathing about Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
You would think that the Houthis just are Iranians, by the way people write to them. I mean, write about them. I mean, it's logistically impossible for them to get the type of support that the Saudis gave to say like any of the Salafist groups in Syria or any of the, you know, when they helped start ISIS in 2006, any of that. It's impossible for them to do it, and they're not, you know, in lockstep. The Iranians obviously back them because, you know, if a bunch of guys in sandals can destroy billions of dollars in Saudi equipment, you know, go for it. But
So here's where it gets really good.
anyone who's Shia is Iranian and just dominated by Iran. Anyone who's Sunni is in a grand coalition for democracy.
So he goes, Iran's supreme leader, this is MBS here, Iran's supreme leader is the new Hitler of the Middle East.
No,
But we learned from Europe that...
what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
New Hitler of the
Who
Middle
is the
East?
old Hitler of the Middle East?
His dad?
Saddam, I guess?
Yeah, Saddam was the old Hitler of the Middle East. Yeah.
It was
Asinine.
Neo-Hitler.
How are you writing that?
So he is the new Hitler of the Middle East. But we learned from Europe that appeasement doesn't work. We don't want the new Hitler in Iran.
Is this Little Carmine? You know, we've come to a precipice of an enormous crossroads. We learned from the European example that preoccupation with peace don't work.
This is just like Richard Chamberlain when he went to Munich. So he goes, we don't want the new Hitler in Iran to repeat what happened in Europe in the Middle East. What matters most, though, is what Saudi Arabia does at home to build its strength and economy. What I like about these two paragraphs is that Friedman goes from obliquely referencing the humanitarian nightmare in Yemen that's being carried out by Saudi Arabia with U.S. support that many people have, basically said is genocidal at this point, the starvation being carried out there among that portion of the country that is resisting Saudi control in this disastrous war they've started.
And the epidemic there of cholera.
Of disease and starvation that is being imposed by Saudi Arabia and America as basically we're a silent partner in all of this. We're letting this happen.
Oh,
sure.
well,
We're not a silent partner. I mean,
we love it.
We gave the Saudis laser targeting designations. One of the reasons the bombs have been so accurate over there.
So he goes from describing that situation in Yemen obliquely to then just letting MBS call Iran's leader the new Hitler. Because Iran now has influence in 4 Arab capitals. Is Iran currently carrying out a genocide in any country?
I guess they would argue.
They would argue Syria.
Syria.
Look, the point is, it's a bit rich to call Iran Hitler when they're carrying out their own genocidal war in Yemen.
Also, I have the feeling that Mohammed bin Salman just found out about Hitler.
I'm going to say calling Iran Hitler is it's very asinine, ahistorical. Seems like a very poor choice of words.
And which country is turning a generation of Muslims into religious fanatics,
Not
and
anymore,
violent
dude.
maniacs from
They
the
have apps
Caucasus to Indonesia? It's not fucking Iran.
Not anymore. They stopped it. They're like, extremism, cut it out.
I'm done with it.
Yeah, I'm fucking done with it. I'm still misogynist, though.
That's pretty much
I'm still I'm still racist. Well, it's like how
I still have slaves.
I still have slaves. I'm still committing war crimes. I'm still giving people cholera. I'm still starving Yemen. I'm still actually gonna actually export extremism into Syria. Now that I think about it, the extremism shit, I'm done with it.
So last line here, he says, but can MBS and his team see this through? Again, I make no predictions. He has his flaws that he will have to control. Insiders here tell me. They include relying on a very tight circle of advisors who don't always challenge him sufficiently.
He needs a team of rivals.
Yes, and a tendency to start too many things that don't get finished. Is he talking about Yemen there?
He hasn't finished off.
There's a whole list. But guess what? Perfect is not on the menu here. Somebody had to do the job, wrench Saudi Arabia into the 21st century, and MBS stepped up. I, for one, am rooting for him to succeed in his reform efforts. Before you guys chime in here, when he said wrench Saudi Arabia into the 21st century, and I'm rooting for it, my mind is just drawn back once again to vintage Thomas Friedman, who said of the Iraq War that would help wrench the Arab world into the 21st century, and that American troops would be the ones to go door to door and say, if you don't like modernity, how about you suck
it
on this?
Suck it.
Well, who's sucking now? No, look, I mean, wrenching along to the 21st century, it's like pushing a car out of mud. And also you have cholera and you're being just bombarded by an inbred shithead in a $3 billion plane.
That last
keep
paragraph,
pushing, never give up.
That last paragraph sounded like the copy on a VHS for an 80s movie about a plucky bunch of kids who save a community center.
We're putting on a show.
We're gonna wrench them into the 21st century. It's not gonna be easy, but I think these wacky kids can do it.
Well, I gotta say, he might be prematurely exuberant, but I hope that he's successful and we get rid of the corruption and the misogyny and the bad kind of Islam and not the good kind.
Oh man, I just thought about it. What if jobs return at the exact same time as corruption and bad Islam ends in Saudi Arabia?
We're gonna owe a lot of people a big ball.
What if he said, I'm going to make Saudi Arabia great again?
Ooh.
What if he said the words radical Islamic extremism?
Yeah, that's why this is all happening.
What if he said Merry Christmas?
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
What if he starts a political party with the Ayatollah to resist radical Islam?
What if they invade Iran to take care of their budget deficit?
Well, one thing we can be sure, the Washington Post editorial page will be broadly behind all of their efforts.
Absolutely.
And the New York Times as well.
No doubt.
The last point I want to make on this, and do be serious for a second. The other thing, the media response in terms of the moral nihilism or just pure nihilism that's on display here is Thomas Friedman said it, Shmuel said it. I'm not going to read the rest of his monstrous article. But this sort of hand-wringing over how could they do this to themselves? That it's human sacrifice. That they're Thomas Friedman said they're throwing the flower of their youth away rather than I don't know teaching them to code or some bullshit like that.
Rather than having them die of fucking giardia in open sewers created by Israel.
What I want to say about that is again the fact that these people can't fathom the idea that that you would give your life for something bigger than yourself is very telling.
Yeah.
And I think that the people. The men and women and doctors who were blown away because they approached a fence or threw a rock did that knowing that they were facing death, and they did it anyway. Yeah. And I think that is the word for that is heroism.
It speaks to two things. It speaks
question.
to their heroism, a heroism that to borrow a term from my hated Pepe villains, small-souled. You can't imagine that kind of sacrifice. But also, it speaks to the horror that Israel's created in Gaza. That living is no longer preferable if you can't live on your own terms.
Well,
you're willing to fucking die for it.
In any other context, like especially in American culture, we love the idea, like the phrase "better to die on your feet."
Yes,
than live
exactly.
Like a slave.
Right.
That's exactly what we're seeing
in our like we talked about this in the thing about how the last episode about how America turns Goliath into David.
Right.
And we have so many stories about Americans who are willing to do anything for their freedom, but when we see it happening somewhere else. It's clearly some sort of perverse death drive and cult created by some awful Hamas government or by the wickedness of Islam, and not people in an untenable, horrible, torturous, nightmarish existence created by our ally in Israel who are willing to do anything to try to stop it. And two things I want to say before we move on. Speaking of the doctors who went there, the medical staff, one of the medical staff who went there, a number of whom were shot, one of whom was killed, who went there to provide aid for the people who went on the march to the not the fucking border, to the fucking fence, is a Canadian doctor named Tarek Lubani, who was shot in the leg and I believe is still recovering. And according to a friend of his who messaged me, is a fan of this show. And I wanted to say, and he asked if we could shout him out, and I say absolutely. And I think that you want to talk about heroism. This is a person who is an absolute example of fucking heroism, and we should all thank him for his literal. That's actual service.
And another point I'd like to make on that: the IDF, when these things started, had a tweet that they hastily deleted where they said, "We know where every one of these bullets went.
Yep.
All the shots are precise. They're firing. The snipers are firing these shots. They know exactly who they're pulling the trigger on. These people are." Clearly designated as doctors, or
they have large symbol. The
same with
Red Cross. They have
journalists,
every indication that they are medical.
There is no
and the press people too that they've.
There
shot.
is no conclusion other than they are intentionally targeting doctors and the press.
Well, many people point this out, but there were all those tweets of American hand-wringers being like, "Oh, it's tough out there. It's all a blur. Sometimes they don't know who they're hitting." And the classic two tweets next to each other response is all those versus that tweet of the IDF spokesperson going, "We know where every bullet landed. There were no mistakes. We come prepared. We know what we're going to do each time."
Is there anything that they can do to resist that?
No,
you won't?
because BDS isn't good either. BDS is an act
That's
of war.
also violence.
BDS is violence and anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
There is literally
also
nothing.
illegal in many jurisdictions.
There is, and they want to increase that. They want to make it an illegal thing to participate in BDS.
Are you a college professor and you said a nice thing about Palestinians? Sorry, you're fired.
Yeah, you're
Try
fine.
doing business in any Southern American state. You literally have to sign a checkbox with the state saying that your business will never boycott.
Why are you
Israel.
doing the Spock hand?
Oh, I just do that sometimes.
Because it's logical.
But yeah, no. But what we've learned,
It's called coordination.
because during the second Intifada, while they were mowing down Palestinians and crying the whole time, the Israeli answer is, "Well, where's the Mandela?
Yeah.
Where is the peaceful?"
You just ran them over.
And there is no fucking peaceful protest that would be acceptable because this is not a thing that's negotiable.
Right.
Because the ethno-state isn't negotiable.
Right.
And that is where we are. And I wanted to end this because I think we want to move on to talk about the MS-13 and the domestic parameters of this panic about borders and control and
Get to the fun part of the
contamination. Is that after Operation Barbarossa began, Heinrich Himmler gave a speech to a Waffen-SS battalion. And the quote that he said was, "It is a time of iron, and we must sweep with iron brooms." And I want to ask anybody who thinks of themselves as in solidarity with Israel or with America in its battle against these phantom terrorists or MS-13 or anything. Anybody who wants to protect the West. Do you disagree with that idea?
Right.
And they don't. That is the presiding ideology of the West, quote unquote, that these people are trying to defend. Yep. The presiding ideology is the Nazi concept of complete domination and extermination or defeat. That is what we're living in.
Yep.
Are you ready to laugh?
Yeah, all right, just to play us out, Thomas Friedman and anyone who looks like Thomas Friedman should never say the phrase "the flower of youth" ever again. Fucking repulsive. Anyway, guys, on to sunnier days.
I did want to mention Theresa May, just another resounding defeat in Parliament. This fucking Brexit thing is just continues to be astoundingly funny. I'm sorry if you live in the UK, but I mean, sorry, mate. It's hilarious.
I can't wait to go there because we're going on a UK tour in June and just own everyone there the entire time.
It's, nobody knows what the fuck
doing
to do.
my flawless accent
or want.
I will get glassed.
But I just got to read though the real soothsayer. I mean, Derek, you're aspiring to be like this guy, the true king of the flat globe. I'm talking about Thomas Friedman.
I can't grow a mustache like his. I've tried, but I can't make it happen.
And he turned out an opinion piece for the Times today that is vintage Friedman, and I got to share it with you guys. The headline is the title is "The United Kingdom has gone mad. The problem with holding out for a perfect Brexit plan is that you can't fix stupid." And he,
Well, he would know.
yeah.
That's lit. What is it? Is that one of the fucking like blue collar comedy kings punchline?
Like
Bill Engvall or some shit. Hey, Theresa May, here's your sign.
So he goes, just skipping ahead just a little bit. It goes, seriously, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have come to London right now because there is political farce everywhere. In truth, though, it's not very funny. It's actually tragic. What we're seeing is a country that's determined to commit economic suicide but can't even agree on how to kill itself. It's an epic failure of political leadership. I say, bring back the monarchy. Where have you gone, Queen Elizabeth II? A nation turns its lonely eyes to use. Activate the Queen! Activate the bloody Queen!
Bloody Queen!
So Thomas Friedman
hit her fucking moldering corpse with a goddamn car battery so that she can be awake for 5 minutes to fire everyone and declare martial law.
Stab that adrenaline needle into her heart. Get her up. Get the queen.
Queen up, mate.
Tom Friedman has already gone full monarchist, but he goes here.
Put her in her mech suit. You know she has one.
He goes here, seriously, the United Kingdom, the world's 5th largest economy, a country whose elites created modern parliamentary democracy, modern banking and finance, the Industrial Revolution, and the whole concept of globalization. Oh, wait, they're responsible for all of those horrible things?
Wow, they really are a bunch of
Get rid of this shithole country.
Fucking just controlled demolition of the entire island.
This is the United Kingdom, the world's 5th largest economy that brought us such things as those dark satanic mills, Jimmy Savile, imperialism, the Opium Wars, and another and many other unspeakables.
Both kinds of Indian genocide.
Concentration camps. Yeah. They invented those.
Yes,
well.
they did. But take a bow.
Bring back
that Queen Elizabeth line. The only thing I could think of was when Mr. Burns says to Smithers, "Very well, begin the thawing of Jim Nabors."
He goes here. The country that brought us, ritual pederasty, seems dead set on quitting the European Union, the world's largest market for the free movement of goods, capital, services, and labor, without a well-conceived plan, or maybe without any plan at all. Both Conservative and Labour members of Parliament keep voting down one plan after another, looking for the perfect fix, the pain-free exit from the EU. But there is none, because you can't fix stupid.
Dope. Or because, these countries have all been enmeshed in these transnational institutions that have totally abolished national sovereignty in many ways and made it impossible for you to function in a global economy without being part of their network, and they will punish you and make it impossible for you to fucking dictate your own goddamn destiny economically because of the interdependence and the trade networks. Like, I think it has more to do with it than a fucking Larry the Cable Guy line from 2004. You fucking mustachioed dipshit.
He goes, the entire Brexit choice was presented to the public in 2016 with utterly misleading simplicity. I mean, that's hilarious coming from Thomas Friedman. If you remember some of his hilarious columns about pitching the Iraq War, he was just like,
you just gotta say, suck on this.
Suck on this.
Suck on this. That's pretty simplistic there, Thomas.
Yeah, no, he said American troops need to go door to door and tell Iraqis, you don't like living in the world we've always dreamed of? Well, suck on this.
Yeah.
And he goes here, it was sold with a pack of lies about both the size of the benefits and the ease of implementation, and it continues to be pushed by conservative hardliners who used to care about business but are now obsessed with restoring Britain's sovereignty over any economic considerations. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how conservatives have given up the ghost on globalization and free market if they can just double down on sovereignty.
Yeah. Well, that's because the whole thing's falling apart. It's not working for people anymore, and they need to find the scapegoats. And even if, in the broad sense, all of these things have been good for the ruling class, they are undermining their credibility in, the putative democracies, and they have to find some reason. But the thing is that, there's a strong left case to get out of the EU, or for the abolition of the fucking EU altogether. But the problem, he has a bit of a correct thing in there, in that the Brexit vote was absurd, because regardless of how you thought Brexit should be handled, what do you think to do with the EU? As leave or not, that was an absurd question, because it didn't tell you what the terms were going to be. And that's why it's been this 2-year clusterfuck, because nobody has any idea of what the mandate is, because there has to be an agreement of some kind, and there's been no ability to create a consensus across parties or even with the general public on what that alternative is. And so it's just been finding out that every single one is unpopular and it can't pass. Every single alternative. They had a vote where they let them all pick, they had 8 options, and they voted yes or no on all of them, and every single one failed by different margins, but every single one failed. Astounding.
So it wouldn't be a Thomas Friedman column unless he didn't include, even better than the apocryphal cab driver, he does love speaking to the real heroes here, who are corporate CEOs. In this case, the CEO of Airbus. And I'm going to skip these paragraphs, but basically he just uses this guy. He basically publishes the Airbus CEO's threat to the British people that, we can always build our planes elsewhere. And, Brexit is making us more likely to do that. So, he's like, if you like Brexit, I hope you don't like jobs. So the CEO of Airbus, he's sort of laundering that point of view in the column. But he goes on, he says, I understand the grievances of many of those who voted to leave the EU. For starters, they felt swamped by EU immigrants. There are reportedly some 300,000 French citizens living in London, which would make it one of the biggest French cities in the world. I had a drink with a member of parliament in the bar in the House of Commons on Tuesday, and as we sat down, he whispered to me that, quote, not a single person working in this whole building is British, which is first of all, I'd like to know the name of that guy. That sounds insane and paranoid, and it sounds like the ravings of a madman. And also, he says that I understand the grievances. There's 300,000 French people living in England? What is this,
I can understand that.
Yeah, well...
The French... Ooh.
Yeah, but I don't. The complaint isn't with the French people who moved to Britain. It's with the Poles and the Czechs and the other Eastern European, Central and Eastern European migrants that have come to Britain. Those are the ones who were demonized by the pro-Brexit side, kind of on the right, during the referendum campaign.
And he goes, I also get the resentment of Brits at having regulations set by faceless EU bureaucrats in Brussels. And I get their resentment at the globalized urban elites who those in the rural areas here believed look down at them. And I get the squeeze on middle-class wages here that gets blamed unfairly on the EU and immigrants the way that President Trump blames Mexicans. I get all of that. But I also get what it means to be a leader in the 21st century. I love that. He spends those 2 paragraphs just being like, yeah, all of you fucking hicks and lunatics angry about Polish plumbers taking your jobs away. I get you. I hear you. but I also understand what it means to be a leader in the 21st century.
Which
so
means,
how about you shut the fuck up?
What it means to be a leader is to fucking tell people to suck on this.
Yeah.
We told Iraq to suck on this, and now you have to tell your own rest of populations to suck on this.
Yeah.
And that's the insane hollowness in the center of all of these guys, all of these elite pundits who talk about like macroeconomic shit and foreign policy stuff, is at the end of the day, they will always have a paragraph where they say, yeah, there's a reason that people are upset with these institutions. There's a reason that there's a crisis of legitimacy. But at the end of the day, we're in charge for a reason to shut the fuck up. Like, but the thing is that does not help you. That doesn't. I mean, no one's going to find that convincing. I mean, none of these people read your shit anyway.
Thomas Friedman isn't running for office anywhere, so he can tell people.
He's just telling the elites who have to deal with this.
He's giving them a script so that they can say things like, "I understand your grievances,
I feel your pain."
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
But he goes here. I get what it means to be a leader in the 21st century, and it sure doesn't mean asserting your sovereignty over all other considerations or breaking out of the giant EU market where the UK sends over 40% of its exports without a serious national discussion of the costs and benefits. This is my favorite part. He goes, what do the most effective leaders today have in common? They wake up every morning and ask themselves the same questions. What world am I living in? Is that the most effective leader or the most senile one?
Yeah. Do I smell toast?
Where
Who
am
are my
I?
grandchildren?
What day is it?
Why is my left arm numb?
He goes, they wake up every morning and ask themselves the same questions. What world am I living in? What are the biggest trends?
How did I get here?
What are the biggest trends in this world? And how do I educate my citizens?
Trends in this world. Tamagotchis are coming back.
And how do I educate my citizens about this world and align my policies so that more of my people can get the best out of these trends and cushion the worst?
Look at that. That's he's saying it. He's saying you wake up and you jack into the global capitalist hive supercomputer that tells you what's happening, and then your job is just to sell it to your idiot rube citizens. There's no changing anything. They have no control over their destiny. You don't even have control over everything. You are completely at the mercy of this machinery.
No.
And your job is to pitch it to people to prevent them from tearing the whole thing down.
Yeah, exactly. Like the most effective leaders are the ones who can, craft a narrative so that the shitheads who live in their country will have, understand the real cost benefit and, have cushioned the blow of telling them that, in fact, they all have to accept a much dramatically lower standard of living. Yeah. But I love the idea about the first thing they think about when they wake up every morning. What world am I living in? And I just had an image reading that of Mohammed bin Salman just with the Victorian sleeping cap on and then just eyes open, bolt upright, eyes glowing, real shit. What world am I living in? What trends can I think about today?
How many Falcons am I going to buy today?
Yeah.
How many gold-plated Falcons am I going to purchase? But
I'm imagining one of these guys waking up one morning and reading about the Juicero. A Wi-Fi enabled juicer. That's where things are going today. All right, let's do it.
I mean, he doesn't name who the most effective.
No,
of course not, because he probably is. He's probably thinking of Angela Merkel or something. But the real answer is Erdogan and fucking Netanyahu, MBS, and Putin. Those are the actual most effective leaders.
And guess what they're using to paper over the cost-benefit analysis? Hardcore, insane nationalism
and violent,
and violent
warfare.
Repression, and war,
both internal and external.
Yeah. So God, it keeps getting better. This is just such vintage for. This is he's given us the hits here. So he goes, "What world are we living in? For starters, we're living in a world that is becoming so interconnected."
Are we living in the future we always dreamed of?
Yes, indeed.
Thomas!
Yes, indeed we are. And this is my favorite part. He goes, we're living in a world that is becoming so interconnected. And then he goes here in dashes. Thanks to digitization, the internet, broadband, mobile devices, the cloud, and soon to be 5G wireless transmissions. And I just love this because I was like, wow, Tom is really padding out the word count in this column. You just said the internet 6 times, dude.
I'm surprised that he didn't throw in information superhighway. That's a lot more syllables.
Massive multiplayer online role-playing games. Fortnite, Apex Legends.
Chat forums, something awful. 4chan, 8chan.
And he goes, that we are becoming interdependent to an unprecedented degree. Again, does Thomas Friedman have an editor at the New York Times?
No.
'Cause
They don't edit
Yeah,
him.
they don't edit him. It's like, you've been turning in the same fucking column for 15 years now,
It's
dude.
just that Common commercial.
Yeah.
Every single one is just the fucking Common
And he
commercial.
goes, in this world, growth increasingly depends on the ability of yourself, your community, your town, your factory, your school, and your country to be connected more and more to the flows of knowledge and investment, and not just rely on the stocks of stuff. Okay, so in the interdependent, interconnected world, you have your school, your factory, your town, your government needs to think about flows, not stocks. And he goes, over centuries, notes John Hagel, who currently co-heads Deloitte's Center for the Edge. How is that a real thing?
The Center for Edging. It's the Center for Edging.
The Center for the Edge.
We have never nutted in this building, and we never will.
The guy who co-heads the Center for Edging says business has, quote, been organized around stocks of knowledge as the basis for value creation. The key to creating economic value has been to acquire some proprietary knowledge stocks, aggressively protect those knowledge stocks, and then efficiently extract the economic value from those knowledge stocks and deliver them to the market.
Gibberish!
The challenge in a more rapidly changing world is that knowledge stocks depreciate at an accelerating rate.
What?
In this kind of world, the key source of economic value shifts from stocks to flows. It's the interconnected, interdependent, cloud-based world is experiencing a heavy flow at the moment.
Oh, I got to get that knowledge flow and not those knowledge stocks. Oh, I'm shorting the knowledge stocks.
What does any of this mean?
It's
I have no
gibberish.
clue.
These all. I'm convinced that every one of these things, all these think tanks, like not part of it is, yeah, it's their court ideologues, court economists who are there just to justify in the minds of the billionaires of the elite why what they're doing is right. But I think also it's just a make work program for their idiot nephews and stuff.
That's who works at the Center for
Yeah,
Edging.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a wonk version of like a handbag line for your bored third wife.
So I'm skipping ahead here. There's even more drivel that's not worth reading. He goes, the wisest leaders also understand that all the big problems today are global problems, and they only have global solutions.
I mean, by definition, the big problems would be global, since that's
And
the
he goes-
largest unit.
And I am talking about climate change, trade rules, technology standards, and preventing excesses and contagion in financial markets. What is preventing contagion?
Contagion in financial markets.
You got stocks in my bonds. I got bonds in your stocks.
The NASDAQ took a beating today after a bird flu outbreak. All the
Guy,
traders.
you call your broker and you're saying, I'm sorry, your portfolio has AIDS.
If you check the T-cell count on the bond markets lately, it's bad. He goes here, if your country wants to have a say in how those problems are solved, and your country's name is not America, Russia, China, or India, you need to be part of a wider coalition like the European Union. The UK membership in the EU has given it an outsized voice in world affairs. Again, I would like Britain to use more of their indoor voice in world affairs.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, buddy.
Be nice.
After
The
World War
record's
II,
not
you can
great.
just sort of, bye.
Yeah.
But, it goes here. And there's one more thing the best leaders know. A little history. Trump is fine with a world of competitive European nationalisms, not a strong European Union. So is Vladimir Putin. So, it seems, are the Brexiteers. How quickly they've all forgotten that the EU and NATO were built to prevent the very competitive nationalism that ran riot in Europe in the 20th century and brought us 2 world wars.
And it's
NATO was built to counter the Soviet Union. It wasn't built for that.
And they hired a bunch of Nazis to staff it.
Jesus Christ.
That's called knowing a little history. Let's put on our history caps here. So he goes, sorry to be so despondent, but I went to graduate school here on a Marshall Scholarship from the British government, was married here, and started as a journalist on Fleet Street in London. I like the place, but this is not the reasonably competent British government I grew up with.
These aren't the guys where Anthony Eden did a bunch of poppers and tried to invade Egypt.
It's being led by a ship of fools, a conservative party bloc that is now radical in its obsession with leaving Europe, and a Labor Party that has gone Marxist. Oh, okay. Thanks for that.
Can't
Thanks for
have
Thomas.
that.
Can't have that happen. If the people here can't force their politicians to compromise with one another and with reality, there's still a glimmer of hope that this might happen. There is going to be a crack up of the British political system and some serious economic pain. This is scary. So concludes Thomas Friedman column.
And the nationalization was the nationalized healthcare system was hanging from the door of the car.
Yeah, the truck driver was flashing his headlights because he was trying to warn you. Marxists were in the back of the car the
It's
whole
a load of
time.
bollocks, isn't it?
No, but I mean, I'd be okay with a United Kingdom with a significantly diminished role on the
Yeah, they
world
need to
affairs.
settle the fuck down, guys.
But yeah, that is Thomas Friedman, ladies and germs, about what it means to be a leader in the world today, which basically means doing things that are horrendously unpopular but avoiding any kind of democratic accountability for those decisions.
Yeah, it rules.
I think that about does it for us today. But Derek, you've got this reading series is very much in the vein of the same kind of like weepy histrionics, and like I said, just pure imperial brain rot. And it could not come from anyone other than the U.S. empire's most, shall we say, witty, charming, and clear-thinking individuals. And I'm talking, of course, about Thomas Friedman. New York Times.
He does it with panache.
New York Times opinion column, Thomas Friedman.
We needed to go over there, basically, and take out a very big stick, right in the heart of that world, and burst that bubble. And there was only one way to do it, because part of that bubble said, we've got you. This bubble is actually going to level the balance of power between us and you, because we don't care about life. We're ready to sacrifice, and all you care about are your stock options and your Hummers. And what they needed to see was American boys and girls going house to house, from Basra to Baghdad, and basically saying, which part of this sentence don't you understand? You don't think, we care about our open society? You think this bubble fantasy, we're just going to let it grow? Well, suck on this, okay? That, Charlie, was what this war was about.
The headline, what Joe Biden and I saw after the U.S. invaded Afghanistan. Back when we visited in 2002, there was hope that America could help make the country better. So let's just dive into the mind palace of Thomas Friedman. Beginning here, he says, I was not surprised that Joe Biden decided to finally pull the plug on the U.S. presence in Afghanistan. Back in 2002, it was reasonable to hope that our invasion there to topple Osama bin Laden and his Taliban allies could be extended to help make that country a more stable, tolerant, and decent place for its citizens, and less likely to host jihadist groups. But it was also reasonable to fear from the start that trying to graft a Western political culture onto such a deeply tribalized, male-dominated, and Islamic fundamentalist culture like Afghanistan's was a fool's errand, especially when you factor
male-dominated?
Yeah.
The fuck?
I mean, it's just like, Thomas, if this was clear to you then, you certainly weren't sharing it in your columns about what a fool's errand this all might turn out to be. And in fact, much of this column is actually takes the place of a diary he supposedly kept during this time. And he goes, Biden was torn between those hopes and fears from the very start. I know because I was with him on his first visit in early January 2002 to post-war Afghanistan. It was just weeks after the major fighting had subsided and the Taliban were evicted from Kabul. He goes, I kept a diary in the months after 9/11, including of that trip, and published it in 2002 with a collection of columns from that time in my book, Longitudes and Attitudes, Exploring the World After September 11th.
That's my favorite Jimmy Buffett album.
King Kong.
King Kong ain't got shit on Thomas Friedman and his diary of thoughts and columns that he fucking cashed out for a book deal, reprinting
Longitudes and attitudes. Oh, that
he got
hits.
paid like $20 million for that. Probably.
Can I just say, by the way, that I walked by the coffee shop around the corner from me the other day, and there was a copy. I was like, that book's been there like every day I pass by. What is it? And it's just a copy of The World Isn't It Flat, Hot, and Crowded. That's the one. That's him, right?
Well,
So-
and the world is flat. He has 2 books about flatness.
he said flat twice in 2 different
Yeah, well,
titles?
because flatness is good. Flatness, it's okay. Matt Taibbi already established this, but his metaphor, it doesn't work because the whole point of a sphere is that 2 points on a sphere are closer together than at any point on a flat plane.
I don't know what that means, but
It's geometry. The point is that he doesn't get it.
But it was on the counter, and I don't know if it's like a book that someone was so displeased with they just left at the cafe and didn't even take with them.
They're using it to make sure the little tables don't wobble. They just wedge a Friedman under there.
Yeah, they just use it as a doorstop. But yeah, I just thought that was funny that of all books, it was Tom Friedman. Anyway,
So he goes
keep
on
going.
here. He goes, they were my thoughts, not Biden's, but we were seeing the same things and sharing many of the same first impressions, which in many ways persist today. So, he's going to share.
I am Joe Biden.
He's sharing
when you
his.
think about it.
He's sharing his diary entries.
Contact a doctor or a family member if you are having the same thoughts and perceptions as Joe Biden.
Oh no.
Yeah, he started just bringing milkshakes everywhere.
Biden opens a local sort of like imams meeting by calling him "Hey fat," and then just launching into a horrible tirade.
He gave my mom his class ring. They're both 63.
He goes here. The diary entry began. We flew to Islamabad and then grabbed the UN relief flight into Bagram Air Base. I'm just imagining Thomas Friedman getting visited by the Black Lodge, where they're like, "The good Dale is here. Write it in your diary, Thomas."
Yep.
So he goes here.
Don't put on the ring, Joe.
We flew to Islamabad and then grabbed the UN relief flight into Bagram Air Force Base, 50 miles from Kabul, also known as one of the major hubs of U.S.'s torture regime was carried out at Bagram Air Force Base. But he goes here, I stayed at the house being rented by the New York Times, which had only slightly better plumbing, but a friendly group of Afghan drivers and cooks who kept the fireplace roaring and the raisin pilaf and warm Afghan bread on the table. I mean, this is just Tintin in the Congo. I mean, this is just like fucking Thomas Friedman's. He's just like our lovable Afghan servants kept us adorned in their local fabrics and warm rice pilaf.
And this was written now. This isn't even in 2002, right?
No, this is his diary from 2002.
Oh, it's his diary
This
from back
is
then.
his
Okay.
thoughts at the height of all this. Yes.
Yeah, but he's publishing it
He's
now.
publishing it now.
Yeah, and
which is
he goes, my first impression of Kabul, it was ground zero east. We might as well be doing nation building on the moon, I wrote in a column I published that week. I just love here, like I said, this is all being written, like a column being written at the time. These are his diaries from 2002 when he had hope for Afghanistan, and this is what he's saying about it. He's like, this country
Looks
is
like a pile of shit.
this country's like the moon.
I can't wait to go home.
This country's like the moon. Although some of its friendly moon people feed me rice pilaf and warm
They don't even
bread.
have magic cards here.
Yeah.
This is taking forever.
God. Okay. So he's what's the point he's driving to? I'm fascinated.
So he goes here. I'm skipping ahead around. This is back to the diary. He goes, my heart told me to write that America must remain here for however long it takes, with however many troops it takes to repair this country and provide a minimum level of security so it can get on its feet again. It was the least we owed the place, having already abandoned it once after the Soviet withdrawal. We didn't have to make it Switzerland, just a little bit better, a little freer, and a little more stable than it was under the Taliban. I just love how fucking racist this all is. He glides right over it. He's like, look, it's never going to be Switzerland, okay? But if we can just make these stupid moon people a little less violent and...
Also, a little bit better,
just a little bit more stable.
I know we all know this now about Friedman. This is just who he is. But every time Will, you came on last season, we read from him during the Iraq War, and it's just it always it's being born again. Listening to the way we should have made it just a little bit better and a little bit freer. Like, how many teaspoons of better? What is the measurement he's going on here of all these general words? It's infuriating.
It's like I prefer the guys who this is the same thing as the guys who are like everyone who's like the first reply to Ilhan Omar, like the Dark Universe Jeff Tiedricks, who are like, why don't you tell that to your moon god Allah?
Yeah.
There is a part in the Constitution that says that no one can be an Allah-style individual.
Yeah.
But it's like the same thing. This is just like the same bullshit.
So, and he also is saying that this is a moon-based place. So
Yeah,
He goes here.
exactly.
This is once again from Thomas Friedman's diary. He goes, Tom Friedman's first rule of politics: never trust the country where a new minister has the picture of his favorite dead militia leader, not the country's interim president, over his desk. So he was just like, we were trying to make the place a little bit better, but like immediately government ministers didn't have photos of Hamid Karzai over like on their desk.
this is a list he's writing himself.
Yeah. This is Thomas Friedman's rules, and he goes, it seemed to me that the tribal warrior culture ran so deep in this place, it would be hard for any neutral central government to sink real roots. As I contemplated that militia leader's picture, I wondered to myself, when were the good old days of government in Afghanistan? Before Genghis Khan? Before gunpowder?
How about right before we started getting involved? I mean, like before we invented all of these sort of groups that he hates so much and thinks that it's the moon Islamic Jihad moon base. But I'm weirded out by him writing like in the third person his own list of
His rules.
rules and
And
suggestions.
regulations for stealing candy.
I was
gonna say.
Oh, fuck. Sorry.
Rules and regulations. Callback.
Actually, it's Afghanistan, so it's the U.S. Rules and regulation for stealing opium.
Yes. I hope at least, yeah.
So he goes here. Indeed, I wrote in my column that week that I lingered one evening in the famous bookstore of the Intercontinental Hotel, which had an amazing collection of books on Afghan history. As
You
I
really explored the country, Tom. You really got out there.
He's at the hotel bookstore.
I went to the fucking guest shop.
Yeah, I went to the gift shop at the Intercontinental in the green zone.
Not even trying.
He goes, as I perused.
It's not even the cab driver. It's worse than the cab driver.
As I perused the shelves, I wrote, I was struck by how many books had Afghan wars in the title. I picked up one called A History of the War in Afghanistan and discovered it was a part of a thick 2-volume set that covered only the years 1800 to 1842. I was also struck by the collection of postcards offered in that bookstore. One in particular. It was a 2-part picture. One part was of a shell-ravaged building, and the other part of a damaged hallway with the roof collapsed and rubble strewn all over the floor. The caption read, Afghanistan, the looted and destroyed Kabul Museum. That is the sign of a country too long at war, when it is producing postcards of the rubble. And it's like, this is Thomas Friedman writing in 2002, like, on the precipice of another 20 years of the U.S. being at war in that country.
Also, if you're being sent as a professional journalist to a country and then find yourself surprised, like in the gift shop by books about that country and like detail, why are you in the country on this?
He is America's
mission?
premier foreign policy correspondent, and
he's like
probably he probably makes like 250, like 500 grand a year.
Well, with the speaking fees, I mean, he's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, his wife is a
pulling it.
billionaire too. So I mean,
Google Tom. I mean, as always, Google Tom Friedman house.
Yeah,
Always.
Google Tom Friedman shirt off. You may like what you see.
So this is one. This is you want to talk about like Thomas Friedman mixed metaphors. I highlighted this sentence just in the middle of an otherwise boring paragraph. He goes, he writes here, could the future bury the past there, or would the past always bury the future?
Oh no!
This is like young adult writing. This is so bad. This is like it's like a combination of that and like Benny Johnson's Fort Hood food blog.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, wait. Felix, you bring up Benny Johnson. Okay, listen to this paragraph. This is once again back to the diary. He writes here in 2002. I looked around the room at the Special Forces A teams that were there and could see America's strength hiding in plain sight. It wasn't smart missiles or night fighting equipment. It was the fact that these Special Forces teams each seemed to be made up of a collection of Black, Asian, Hispanic, and white Americans. It is our ability to blend those many into one hard fist that is the real source of our power. Yeah, one hard fist. You got the Blacks, Asians, Hispanics, white Americans. Together, that's America. He goes, this is precisely what Afghans have not been able to do in recent decades and has left them weak and divided and prey to outsiders. So it was their inability to come together to form fucking Special Forces death squads. I mean, shit, if they had Special Forces death squads,
they had all the training from us. Why couldn't they do it?
That could project force anywhere in the world. They may have visited Thomas Friedman before this fucking war even started, and they could have.
Yeah, it's
let's just say
easier-
projected force outwards.
Tom Friedman walking up to like Hamid Karzai's brother who is the opium trafficker and being like, "Do you have any like black guys here? What, like you're like a Chinese guy or something? Because I have this idea."
Oh my god!
And he goes, of that special forces paragraph, he says, reading that particular passage 20 years later, I confess that I wonder if we had become more like the Afghans and not the Afghans more like us. Our diversity is only our strength as long as we can forge out of many one. But lately, our parties and politics have become so tribalized, it's not clear anymore that we can do that. I mean, this is like the dumbest version of like white man's burden. He's just saying that like, oh, the Afghans are making us more like moon people than we are making them more like Swiss people.
But all
This
of
is
these,
like the dying transmission of the AI that writes Tom Friedman columns.
but all of these little pirouettes with the I'm going to make the one thing switch with the other thing in every sentence. This is like very Pete Buttigieg. Like, you know, the bigness of our differences is smaller than the bigness of our similarities or whatever. He's just every sentence is that. But about Afghanistan.
It reminded me of how Carrie in Sex and the City writes. I wondered, were we the ones who needed a tribal meeting?
Well, it's again, Will, though. I again, everything he's writing down is like why this isn't good, and then he says he went off home and wrote in support of the war.
Yeah,
it's such a strange thing to be writing now or admitting now.
He goes,
I like the idea of like his editor being like, you know what, Tom, I want you to try and, you know, maybe go back to like '02 and see what you wrote then. Let's try for an introspective one this go around. And then like this is what he came back with.
and he goes,
Just one of the worst things ever written.
It was like I tried to look within myself and all I saw was the abyss.
So he goes on in his diary to describe what happened when him and Joe Biden tried to leave the country on like a military cargo plane, and they got like the guys are like, oh, we have orders that like we can't put any civilians on this plane. So in his diary he writes this: getting out of Afghanistan turned out to be harder than getting in, which I hope will not be I hope will not be a metaphor for U.S. operations there generally.
Oh, my bad. Turned out it was.
All right, I'm gonna guess that in like 10 months from now, we're still in Afghanistan. Tom Friedman is going to use this as a callback. Something tells me, I don't know what.
So
it's going to rock because he's going to be like, yeah, I was actually, I was right.
Yeah, I was right about myself being wrong again.
Yeah, you know, it's
exactly.
actually interesting. You know, it's very interesting when you consider the flatness of how correct I am, which is flat all the time. Which makes the world, when it's interconnected, matter so much more.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then, so like now he finally brings in like a little reminiscing about Joe Biden, about sleepy Joe Biden, because like he front loaded this whole column with like me and Joe's time in Afghanistan. We're best friends.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, where is Biden if he's
right,
with
so
Biden?
Biden comes in here and he goes, I ended up lending Biden my satellite phone to call Secretary of State Colin Powell via the State Department Operations Center
a satellite
to see if
phone,
he
as
could
one
help.
does.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm just a journalist here in Afghanistan, and I have a satellite phone that connects me directly to the State Department.
Yeah, you know, like it's
Center
like
of
George
Operations.
Clooney and the fucking Peacemaker or whatever.
Thomas Friedman probably shouldn't even have like a regular phone. He should probably just have a jitterbug.
He gets what's that thing for old
Jitterbug.
Yeah, he gets a jitterbug.
So he goes here. So he gives Joe Biden his satellite phone that he just has, and he goes, "This is Joe Biden. Could you connect me with Colin Powell?" Biden asked the State Department operator. A few minutes pass. Colin, hey, it's Joe Biden. Yeah, I'm standing here on the runway at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, trying to get out on a military transport, and they're telling me that the Pentagon has ordered that no civilians be let on the plane. I'm sorry to trouble you, Colin, but could you give us a hand here? Powell told Biden to hold on for a minute while he tracked down Rumsfeld. Rumsfeld was in church, so Powell tracked down his deputy, Paul Wolfowitz, and he goes, there were a few more minutes of phone calls to CENTCOM headquarters in Florida before Powell came back on the phone with Biden. Joe, said the Secretary of State, let me talk to the air traffic controller there. I mean, this goes on for another 3 paragraphs.
Fascinating stuff.
Man, this is so cool.
I feel like I'm there.
Grandparents across the country are emailing this to their progeny.
Do you think there's like a guy who's like, he's one of those YouTube guys whose thing is like he's obsessed with air traffic controls.
Right.
And this is the only newspaper article he's ever read. He's
This
like,
one's for you.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
I mean,
very-
actually, I do kind of want to look. It is really funny always to look at who like whenever like Samantha Power writes something for like the evil blog or whatever, like, and then
Yeah.
it's like who actually shares it, like on Twitter, like who's like boosting it or whatever, and it's always academics, like always, like it's Professor somebody. But I am curious who would be the kind of person to share this.
So like they get on the
Well,
airplane.
us.
They get on the airplane and then they land in Pakistan. And then this is what he says here. He says, talking to the U.S. airmen at Jacobabad. Oh, fucking A. I'm not even going to say it.
Just say at an airbase.
Yeah, okay.
It's pronounced San Luis Obispo.
So talking to U.S. airmen at insert Air Force Base in Pakistan was an eye-opener. One of them told us, we don't have a flight to Afghanistan that doesn't get shot at by small arms fire from inside Pakistan somewhere near the border. But Pakistan is our ally in this war, we said. Tell that to the Pakistanis who live along the Afghan border, he shrugged. It was one of those moments when you realize as a journalist that there are a million stories going on in and around this larger war story that you have no clue about. It was one of those moments when you get an inkling that you were standing on a story with a false bottom. You get an inkling that you were standing on a story with a false bottom.
Is the bottom of this?
The bottom is his
He's
absolute
falling down
like,
his ass.
dog
I went
dick
to
ignorance
Afghanistan
about the
thinking-
world.
I went to Afghanistan thinking I was a bratty verse top. And then on the plane with Joe Biden, I learned I'm actually a bottom.
It is
I
cool
guess.
because I am now looking on Twitter to see like who is like sharing this article, and one guy is like distinguished is like, you know, his profile is like a federal government picture, and it's like distinguished diplomat in residence, retired diplomat, et cetera, et cetera. So like, you know, this like drivel, this like brain slurry from the head of Tom Friedman is actually passed around by serious grown-ups.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like, did you remember that woman Kelly Magsamen who is like,
Oh, God,
she's
Elliot
like-
Abrams'
yeah,
friend?
She works for the Blinken State Department now, but she had the tweet that was like, "Hey, I'm a liberal Democrat, but Elliot Abrams is a good guy, and he's been held accountable for the bad stuff he did."
Oh,
Which
yes, yes.
gave
Oh,
a
my God.
great insight on what holding
I like the idea of
accountable
like
actually
Elliot
means.
Abram being
Yeah.
held accountable and it not involving a scene from The Wicker Man.
Yeah, so like I would look at like just like bullshit articles she would write, and yeah, I'm fascinated by that side of Twitter where it's like not even like daily, like the worst like NatSec Daily Beast journalist or whatever has some like guile and knows how to like vaguely imitate like a prospector joke and shit for like, you know, whatever dumb argument they're in.
Yeah.
But like these people are just, they have none of that. They don't have any of like the irony, affect. And it's,
Yeah.
you look at their bios, and I've gone psycho enough to like go to their LinkedIns. And
Sure.
it's always like, yeah, like head of child molestation at Goldman Sachs. Like, shit like that.
Oh, but by the way, you say the Daily Beast. I share your general take on the Daily Beast. But I guess it was them that just the other day helped break that the whole Taliban, talk about Afghanistan, the whole Russia Taliban bounty
Yeah.
thing
Yeah,
was not true. Didn't happen.
Well, yeah, no,
You made it
I
up.
don't- Yeah,
Totally
yeah. Well,
fiction.
I mean,
This one's a story made up by a writer.
It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication. It never happened.
I think the Daily. Well, I should clarify. Like, I think the Daily Beast is like very editorially bad, but obviously, like, I mean, like every place is every
Yeah,
news
there's no
company
exception
is bad,
there.
and every
Yes.
news company also has like people who are good who work there.
Yes. And
yeah.
and that was a good report. And I had to go back and just queue up the Rachel Maddow segment where it's just like, now we know that this was happening because it's in the New York Times, and we know that President Trump didn't care, or if worse, was he a part of it? And it's just like this 20-minute long expose over nothing. Didn't even happen. People were saying it didn't happen at the time, and it's on TV, and I'm watching it on my screen because it's on TV. And now we learn it was all completely made up. Amazing.
So just to close out Thomas Friedman's, Proustian reverie about a fucking war that he's, feels slightly
Yeah.
convicted. He's like, I can't help but
He
feel
ate
in
a
some way
date.
responsible for the last 20 years of fucking bloodshed in this country.
Did I do that?
So he goes,
Yeah.
so that was Joe Biden's and my introduction to Afghanistan. when I interviewed him last December, a month after his election as president, we got talking informally about the Middle East, and he asked if I remembered our trip to Afghanistan and all the craziness at the end. I'd never forgot it, I told him. Clearly, neither had he. Our nation's... He's like, you remember that one crazy trip we took? You know, it's what a wild ride it's all been for America as it relates to Afghanistan.
That part is also like totally made up. Like also, that, but like that like he was like, hey, do you remember our trip to Afghanistan? And Joe Biden like definitely thought he was someone else.
Yeah, that
much is true.
And also, just that paragraph was just him in a lot of words saying, I asked Biden about, does he remember the trip? And he said yes. Like that's not a paragraph. Why would you include that? Of course, well, not of course that he remembers. It's unlikely that he did. It's just so strange. Like this is what he's paid to fill up the space with. So great, we now know
he's
that you said that.
He's going to try to like tie it all together here. And he says here, our nation's effort there was worth a try. Our soldiers.
Okay.
All right. They left it all out on the field, and that's what matters.
As long as people had fun.
Yeah.
That's literally what George W. Bush said at the end of the Iraq War. When, like, on the same day, I believe we talked about this in episode 10 of last season, on the same day that he got the shoe thrown at him. He's also speaking to troops, and the troops are saying, he's like saying, like, we try, like his reasoning was effectively like, we tried. And because we tried, we didn't fail. And because we didn't fail, we succeeded.
He says, because we tried, we didn't fail. And because we didn't fail, he doesn't quite say it, but because we didn't fail, we won. Is basically what he's trying to do.
Yeah, and then the National Guard did not like seize Washington D.C. So
right, and that's true.
and then like and then you're like woo, and like everybody's like going crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome. Sorry, so Will, was there one more?
He goes here. Our soldiers and diplomats were trying to make it better, but it was never clear they knew how or had enough Afghan partners. Yes, maybe leaving will make it worse, but our staying wasn't really helping. That's big of him to admit after 20 years of this
Thank
shit.
you, Tom.
Yeah. He goes, our leaving may be a short-term disaster, and in the longer run, who knows? Maybe Afghanistan will find balance on its own. Like Vietnam.
Only time will tell.
To quote Andrew, time will show.
Maybe it will find.
This article should have been called "Time Will Show."
Time will show.
Maybe
I just imagine like not knowing who Tom Friedman was and reading this article and like getting to the end of it and just like like what was that? Like what
it's something unpredictable, and in the end, it tried. Afghanistan, I hope you had the time of your life.
Oh goodness, yeah. Well, I mean, in a strange, and I don't actually mean this kind of way, it's comforting that Tom's still there, doing what he always did, offering
eternal mustache,
meaningless drivel that no one really reads, but it keeps getting published. Or I guess a lot of people read it, but no one learns anything.
I do like it. Did make me feel good to hear this.
Yeah.
Like I used to like. When I was younger, I would like get mad at Tom Friedman shit, and now it's like, I love him.
There he is again.
I mean, it'll be a shame day. It'll be a sad day when they put him out to pasture finally.
Yeah, I'll be upset.
Just in closing here, he says maybe Afghanistan will find balance on its own, like Vietnam, or not. I don't know. And then he just says, I am as humbled and ambivalent about it today as I was 20 years ago, and I'm sure that Biden is too. You were never ambivalent about this, Thomas Friedman.
He went on Rose and said, suck on this.
Suck on this. Okay.
That's a direct quote. That wasn't very humble.
Yeah, but what's this? He doesn't specify.
Right.
He's being ambivalent.
Yeah,
it's actually. I think you guys just aren't being very flat about it, but that's just me.
Yeah,
that's
we need to get
true.
Flatter. My goal this year is to get flatter.
A dive into America's premier foreign policy thinker and premier foreign policy thinker and columnist, a guy who I think is probably to this day probably still taken more seriously in the White House and the corridors of power than anyone else who writes about the Middle East or foreign policy.
Tariq Nasheed.
They should give him a column.
Yes, dude. Hey, Tariq and Shmuley need to get together.
Oh my god.
This is for a new Crossfire show.
Yeah. Tariq Nasheed and
Tariq
Shmuley.
is the only guy who could fucking do McLaughlin Group. He's the only guy who could be McLaughlin now.
Yeah.
The firing line with Tariq Nasheed.
Tariq Nasheed and Shmuley should do a show where they argue different perspectives on how to be a Mac.
Yes.
How to be a Jewish Mac and how to be like the more classics.
Rise and grind. That's what we'll call it. Rise and grind.
Rise and grind is the debate show.
Fuck, dude.
Tariq rocks.
I love Tariq.
He fucking owns.
No, of course I'm referring to the magical brain of Thomas Friedman. So this is his column this week. It's titled "How Joe Biden Can Win a Nobel Peace Prize."
I'm kind of surprised they haven't already given it to him. I'm surprised they didn't give him the Obama, considering how traumatized everyone was by Trump.
Yeah, that is a little surprising.
That is like some very European bullshit to do.
Maybe he needs to go on a freaking apology tour.
That honestly, like people say that the Kissinger Nobel is monstrous, but like at a certain level, yes, you know, he is the one who prolonged all the violence, but he did actually also end it. So give him credit for that. You know, stop hitting yourself style. Obama was literally just, we are so happy that the evil ogre cowboy is gone. And now this metrosexual Kenyan gentleman is in charge.
This guy who hangs out in limos all day.
All right, this is Thomas Friedman. Leon Trotsky once supposed.
Let's go, baby.
All right,
Let's
all
fucking
right.
Go.
You know what? Yes.
Yeah, I think we've entered into a lituation here.
You are about to witness a man snapping.
Leon Trotsky once supposedly observed, "You may not be interested in war, but war is interested in you."
A wig?
Wow, you definitely needed to grab Trotsky for that.
Yeah, that's like I've never
Yoda ass bullshit.
I've never read any of that
Trotsky, I
crap.
don't
I've
think
never
he
read
said
any of
that.
that crap. But
Interested in you, war is.
I don't think he said like that. I don't think he said that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
To President Biden, I'd say today, you may not be interested in Middle East peacemaking, but Middle East peacemaking is interested in you.
Oh, man.
I don't think so. I don't think
yeah,
so.
it does not really seem to be that interesting.
I mean, wouldn't it have to be a thing to have a
Yeah.
desire? Because like there is no Mideast peace process at all.
No.
There's no one with any
well, also,
investment in
Mideast
pursuing
peace
one.
process is like now that the war against Palestinians has essentially no external actors except possibly slightly on some factions, Iran.
Yeah, and maybe Lebanon a little bit.
Exactly.
A little Hezbollah.
It's not a Middle East peace process. It's, are you going to stop domestic assaults on people who are in prison camps? It's not like
that's
you're
what all
meeting
those.
with
Totally.
what all
That's
those-
reframing. That's
All those
yeah.
Gulf recognitions was also a recognition that the peace is dead because there's nobody pushing for it.
Exactly.
You were that was bribing them to do like the last thing they did, which is to make one statement about Palestine every year and like give money to Mahmoud Abbas.
Yeah.
Like no one is on the ground like in West Bank or Gaza and is like, I need the man with the most degenerated brain in the world to like pay a guy who's all his parents and grandparents are cousins in Riyadh to like make a statement about me.
Where he goes, Friedman's going to explain it here. He says, "Here's why: all three key players in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict have been dealt some huge, painful shocks over the past year.
Yo, they took an L. They're down bad. Sus.
Palestine, Israel, and me and Felix.
We're one unit.
Yeah.
They know deep down that another round of fighting like the one we saw in the past 2 weeks could unleash dangerous consequences for each of them. Henry Kissinger forged the first real peace breakthrough between Israelis and Arabs after they were all reeling, vulnerable, and in pain as a result of the 1973 war. They each knew that something had to change. Today, if you look and listen closely, you can sense a similar moment shaping up in the wake of the latest Hamas-Israel war. See, there he goes. It's the Hamas-Israel war. It's not Israel's war.
I wasn't aware that Hamas was in control of Sheikh Jarrah. That didn't seem that.
The Palestinian Authority in the West Bank.
Or the West Bank, for that matter.
The Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, led by Abu Mazen, was dealt a significant blow when President Donald Trump last year managed to get the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan to each normalize relations with Israel without waiting for a Palestinian-Israeli peace deal. The message to the West Bank Palestinian leadership was crystal clear. You are utterly messed up, corrupt, and ineffectual, and we Arab states are no longer going to let you have a
Not like these, not like us. Not like us.
Yeah. I mean, everyone seeks to emulate the good governance of the UAE and Sudan.
Yeah.
The message to Palestinian leadership was crystal clear. You came here 9 years ago to do stupid jokes. But now you find that yourself are corrupt, ineffectual, and shit.
You are shit. You tried to be all the things that you wanted to be to everyone while oversharing the fuck out of your personal shit. If you were ever to come back, you would come here with a healthy mental attitude, and you wouldn't.
You wouldn't. And we and I'm sorry, back to Friedman. And we Arab states are no longer going to let you have a veto over our relations with Israel. Have a nice life. And by the way, despite Israel's relentless pounding of Hamas in Gaza, none of those 4 states renounced their normalization with Israel. But Israel also got a shock. It was surprised that Hamas chose to fire rockets at Jerusalem, in effect inviting this war. Okay, there you go. Yeah, they started it. They weren't expecting them to fire the rockets. But look, they just did, and there's war all of a sudden.
The entire thing was premised on that happening because it's autonomic. If you push hard enough, they have to respond, and then you have your war. But it was all initiated. All of it was initiated by Israel. That's the thing. It happened in East Jerusalem where Hamas has no fucking run. It was entirely instigated by Israel.
It was surprised by some of the long-range rockets that Hamas was able to build in its underground factories and deploy and keep deploying despite heavy blows by the Israeli Air Force. Yeah, these underground factories with their long-range rockets really took them off guard. Yeah. They've been terrified by the power of their fucking weaponry.
Well, it's just, that's why they have to blow up the sewers and the water mains and all the houses.
And the only neurosurgeon in Gaza and the AP offices and every fucking school.
Because that's where the underground rockets are. They're under the street. So you need to destroy the infrastructure so there's nothing that the factories can be underground, because if they have to move them above ground, of course, you minimize civilian casualties.
It means that every Palestinian civilian who lives above ground is essentially
a rocket factory.
is a human shield.
Yeah.
Because they're shielding the ground.
Well, here's the thing about the human shield thing that I never understood. If you had your gun to somebody's head in front of me, say we're taking it at its face, right? I wouldn't shoot you through that guy. Like if you were taking a hostage and it's like Die Hard situation.
Wait, you never seen the movie Speed, Brace?
I've seen like 4 movies, but I have been the hostage in many hostage situations. And that's Israel's whole thing that I don't understand. They use human shields. Yeah, but you shoot the human shields.
All they want to do though is say, well, it's their fault that we shot the human shields because they know we're going to shoot them anyway, which means they're not trying. Which means that they don't care if they die, and in fact, they want them to die because then they can use them to make us look bad.
Yeah,
that's the argument. Is that not that they're because obviously the human shield things break down immediately. If the Israelis have proven, as they have over and over again, that they will not be deterred by the presence of a human shield, then it's not a shield.
It's not a shield.
But those deaths then make Israel look bad.
Yeah.
But
and
it's I'm sorry, these people, they don't want to fucking die. And they are not being forced to be where they are. They're just trying to fucking live. And clearly, no matter how bad Israel looks, until now, it hasn't moved the needle at all. It's just an annoying thing that they have to deal with. We got to deal with all the people crying over all these civilians we killed. Oh, boy.
Have you seen that guy, Arsen Ostrovsky?
One of the, honestly, greatest living human beings.
I love him. He's Arsen Ostrovsky is the perfect Israeli because he has... his first name
is that guy who keeps posting his disgusting face?
Yes. So he's the perfect Israeli because his first name is a combination of the 4 sounds that they let you combine any 2 of to make an Israeli male first name, like Gulat or Arsen or
Etan.
Yeah, Etan.
Why do all our names sound like Indian sweets?
Yeah. And his last name is Russian, of course. And he's a sexy guy, look him up. He looks good. And every time, for the past 2 weeks, every time, a celebrity has been I can't believe what I'm seeing. Even just the most, blanket, just stop war bullshit statement. He's like, oh, well, then do you like this? And it's a picture of his disgusting face, making, kissy lips, holding his child in a furnished basement, and he's like, I've got to be here because of Hamas rockets. And then you look at his next post 2 minutes later, and he's like, try Ostrovsky wine. Yes. I've been making
He did a wine ad. He did a wine ad in between, which I gotta say, genetically I respect. But it's just really because he was, and I was also responding.
Read the room.
Yeah, he was also responding with that same picture of him in the bomb shelter 8 days in a row.
There's 8 zillion shots.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to see your disgusting face.
WHINE.
But that is that's the consequence of Hamas's reign of terror over Israel.
Guy's got to take a sad selfie.
Yeah, he has to hang out with his kids.
Yeah,
he has to watch Owls of Gahul.
There was the one where it was a guy, he was taking a video of himself huddling with his sister in a
love that
gutter,
one.
and he's moving and there's a bird just flying by, and there's people walking in the distance, just down the street.
Yeah.
He heard a car backfire and decided to do that.
Do you know how bad you have to fuck up to have like a country where like only Jewish people are considered human, and like they're that bad at like film production,
Insane. Well,
like
here's the thing.
advertising, like they're that shitty at it.
I was also reading that a big reason that Hamas fired the rockets too is they were incited because they saw like an NA guy walking by with a "Kill Your Local Pedophile" T-shirt on.
Yeah. Hamas has been planning at local NA meetings, and yeah.
Back to Friedman here. He says, but most of all, Israel was stunned by this fact. Hamas, by its actions, was able to embroil Israel into a simultaneous
Oh, you embroiled me, damn it.
five-front conflict with different Arab populations. That was scary. On several days last week, Israel found its military and police confronting violent Palestinian protesters in the West
Jesus
Bank,
fucking Christ.
enraged East Jerusalem Palestinians on the Temple Mount, rockets fired, most likely from Palestinian militants from southern Lebanon, rockets fired by Hamas from Gaza, and most dangerously, mob violence in mixed Israeli towns between Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews. Israel managed to keep a lid on all of it. Yeah,
How did
they certainly
manage?
have. But it is not hard to imagine, had it continued or if it flares up again, that this would severely stress Israel's army and police and economy. I mean, God willing,
Yeah,
Jesus
inshallah.
Christ. Israel has not faced that kind of multi-front threat since the Jewish state was founded in 1948. This time around, Israel still found a lot of world public opinion and sympathy on its side. But for how long? This war... Did it find like world public opinion on its side?
No,
Like,
it didn't.
You're talking about America, Canada, Australia, and Great Britain.
That's
Yeah.
it now.
The
That's
five guys.
Yeah.
Five guys. That's when they're not spying. It's just five guys.
It says here, in the age of social networks, it says,
A retweet can be more deadly than a bullet.
Israel's use of sophisticated air power. This is a great sentence. Israel's use of sophisticated air power.
Oh, that's the worst kind.
No matter how justified and precise, triggered a set of images and video in the age of social networks that inflamed and energized Israel's critics around the
It
world.
didn't kill anybody. It generated fucking video.
It was the content
Fuck, that's
creation
next
by the
level.
Israeli army was such a huge setback.
You joke, but their content creation game is pretty impressive.
Dude, they were making. I think they fucked up because they made that they were doing shit like making memes of like
It's
like before and
crazy.
after of like a residential apartment
that's
building.
insane.
And yeah. Also, I will say like I hit up some of those TikTok IDF girls and like. I found them to be insanely unaccommodating when in a private space, which is crazy because I was like, I could go over there and I could probably rescue you and be like, I could like, they have those little short like M16s or whatever. Like I could easily probably bench press that several times in front of you to make love to you also under, and they just would block me.
It says there, that inflamed and energized Israel's critics around the world and exposed just how much the rising progressive left and even some young Jews have grown alienated from Bibi Netanyahu's right-wing government and its willingness to abandon democratic norms to ensure perpetual Israeli control over the West Bank. Like, this is what I was talking about earlier. It's not that they've grown alienated from Netanyahu's government, because the Israeli government, by definition, must abandon democratic norms to maintain control
and here's
over
the
the
thing:
West
is
Bank.
like I know a lot of young Jews being in the media industry and also in my just general life. I don't know anybody who's like, yeah, I just like Israel, but like this Netanyahu government. I've only like known governments like that in Israel. There's no like good government.
Yeah,
like
like
that.
Benny-
There have
Benny-
only been governments like
Benny
that. in Israel,
Gantz
too.
is not going to give Palestinians any civil rights.
Exactly.
He brags about like leading the cast-led fucking invasion.
Yeah.
Who's
Like,
your fucking other guy?
labor
Ehud Barak?
Zionism? Labor
Yeah.
Zionism has been dead for like over 2 generations at this point.
Yeah, it's
Ehud Barak bragged about putting on a dress to just murk a room full of Palestinians. Do you remember that?
Ehud Barak claims that he visited Epstein's apartment sometime between 10 times and 100 times.
Yeah.
And there's photographs of him leaving and 19-year-old women also leaving.
It's very fitting because he is the Israeli Bill Clinton. So it makes
Exactly.
sense to hang out
And
with the same people.
I don't understand what these people think that young Jews like us think Israel is. It's like, It's obviously not Netanyahu's government. It's every government in fucking Israel. It's the government of Israel and this country of Israel.
The first thing I was like told about Israel and Israelis as a kid, like before I knew any political, before I thought of them as like a political entity because I was too young, I just was told by family members, like, you're talking to an Israeli because they're the rudest, most annoying person you've ever met.
I have heard that.
It's like, what do you think? Like, what do you think we think of that place?
They make Australians on vacation, which are distinct from Australians in Australia. They make Australia like the permanent, like floating,
the diaspora.
The diaspora of Australians who just go from, for some reason, hostel to hostel.
Yeah. And then I'm going to be a ski instructor and bomb for 5 years.
Exactly.
Australians are like the Silver Surfer of colonialism. They're just going everywhere and being awful.
Yeah.
Well, it's because the country itself, it's just an inhospitable desert with a little, it's like a fucking, like a margarita glass with this salt rim of civilization around the edge.
Yeah.
But also, wait, this is in the New York Times, right?
Yeah, it's New York Times.
So, question for the editor of the New York Times, who knows who the hell that is.
Present.
What is it called when a right-wing government abandons democratic norms in order to maintain control over an internal minority population that is rising against it so it can continue to, control the Gulf states, whatever it said? Like, there is actually a word for that.
Liz, I'm anti whatever that word is.
That's the most maddening thing is like everyone who spent like the past like 5 or 6 years like comparing Trump to Hitler and making all these Nazi Germany comparisons, which like one way or the other, not a huge. I don't care that much. Like I don't entirely agree with it, but I don't think it's a big deal. But it's like, okay, well, what's this?
No,
what the fuck is this? This place where they do Crystal Knock every fucking night?
That's what I'm saying. I think it's very bold of the New York Times to come out and call Israel a fascist state. But I welcome this change with the Overton window. And I think that we should, applaud them for their, boldness and courage.
Well, here, how come the New York Times Union or whatever doesn't get their fucking asses onto this?
Yeah,
thing,
right.
you know
Tom
what I
Cotton
mean?
scared the shit out of all of them. What's this fucking?
Why doesn't this make you feel unsafe?
But that's what I'm saying. I'm like, wait a second, like none of this shit, like
it matters.
No, I'm just like, none of this is being hurtled towards fucking Joe Biden, who is in charge.
Yep.
Towards the Democratic Party, who is in charge.
Who just sold them $1 billion worth of weapons.
Who is bought and paid for by AIPAC.
A guy who in the 80s, as we were talking about earlier, just came out and said on the floor of Congress, Israel's the best bargain in foreign policy. If Israel didn't exist, the United States would have to make it to protect its interests. It's
really
like,
giving up the game.
You don't have to say anything. He said it already.
Exactly, and that's the thing. That's the thing I don't understand. It's like all these people. It's like I've seen a lot of very confused Democrats and democratic socialists talking about this thing. It's like, well, dude, this is the Biden thing. It's like, this is like, that's the thing that makes all this shit really easy is if you just replace Israel with like apartheid era South Africa. Obviously, they're not all, it's not one for one, but it makes it really pretty simplistic in a good way, I think.
Right.
People
the Reagan administration shit for supporting apartheid South Africa.
Right.
Yeah.
In the practical way that we should look at it as Americans, that's how we should look at it. But yeah, no, this is like, Joe Biden, this is exactly who he's always been. But, as Liz said, it's like people will shit on like Andrew Yang, and I think like rightfully so. But it's like, what about fucking the president? What about Tony Blinken?
Friedman continues. As the Guardian columnist Jonathan Friedland put it last week, a new connected generation of progressive left-wing activists in America and in Europe is reframing the Israeli-Palestinian struggle not as a conflict between two national movements, but as a straightforward matter of racial justice.
Don't let one side isn't allowed to have a nation, you fucking cocksucker.
Yeah. It's a conflict between a nation and the subjugated population that exists within the border of that nation.
Yes.
It's like,
well, maybe it's
calling it a struggle is sort of a euphemism as well too.
Maybe it's in Leninist terms of like, they are a nation. Like we need to free the Palestine belt.
Have they tried doing Chaz?
Israel. I will say, Israel is a Chaz, but with extrapolated about the exact same civilian casualties to people there.
Adjusted for population.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to start Occupy Democrats Israel. I think I could really get a lot done.
Note the placards at last week's demonstration in
What
London.
did you call me? It's ableist to use that word.
Note the placards at last week's demonstration in London. Palestine can't breathe, and Palestinian lives matter. Many American Jewish college students are either unwilling, unable, or too afraid to stand up in their class or dorm and
They're
defend
probably very
Israel.
afraid. I can see that.
Democratic lawmakers tell me that they are being savaged on Twitter and Facebook for even remotely suggesting Israel had the right to defend itself against Hamas rockets. A dam has burst. They don't have the right to defend themselves.
No,
That's not a fucking
that's
thing.
a fake thing.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
That's a
It doesn't-
fake
Have
thing.
you ever noticed that it is never employed in any other context? That
Yeah.
probably means it's made up.
Yeah, there's a similar thing where it's like, oh, well, you don't think Israel has a right to exist. And it's like, when have you used that framework with any
No other country has that.
Here's another country I don't think has a right to exist. Austria. I was talking to Liz about this.
Oh, yeah, I have
there
a
is no
list.
need for an Austria.
Belgium either. Get over
exactly.
yourself.
Yeah.
Divide it between the Netherlands and France. You've solved the problem.
Austria is just part. First of all, Austria. That is what Israel should be. Austria, because these fucking Germans do the Holocaust.
Yes.
And then they're like, it's your problem, guys. I'm like, dude,
No, yes.
give us the fucking.
We want
the
Bavaria.
Ruhr.
I want fucking Bavaria.
Give us the Ruhr.
If you gave us Bavaria, like instead they're like, here, this is your problem, and don't worry if anyone complains. We've invented an even more annoying form of anarchism.
It's so frustrating because when you consider the scale of the population transfers from East Prussia after World War II, millions of Germans being ethnically cleansed. And the thing is, yes, it was ethnic cleansing. It was a lot of people. But at the same time, they fucking did the Holocaust. They kind of had it coming.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, they realized, yeah, you're right. We did have that coming.
Yeah.
Which means that if they'd taken some of that land that got cleansed at that period and given it to the Jews, it's not like there'd be a bunch of dispossessed Germans mad about it now. They'd be like, fair enough. Because they did that shit.
We would have made the Rhineland bloom.
Yeah. No, if we had
Make the Rhineland
do you know how good our life
Dude,
our lives
I would
suck
literally
now,
move there because there's like, oh, cool. Like instead of like having to join the IDF and like kill a kid, like, oh, I can like be in like a poly relationship with 4 19-year-old art students with hairy armpits.
I would instead of
I'm 19 for this.
There would be no. There would be no. Not only would there be no compulsory conscription, there would be no military.
Yeah.
Instead, you would have 2 years where you were drafted to be a DJ.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
would be like the biggest problem would be that me and Brace would be like, Jews actually invented pretzels.
Yeah.
We're indigenous to here. They invented pretzels. It's hard.
Yes. And we'd still be into techno.
Yeah, no, we'd be doing techno. We would be Eurorail super users. We would.
The restaurants would have the same nightclub feel and the same names like Dr. Pizza.
There would be no weird cognitive dissonance when Israel wins the Eurovision Song Contest.
Exactly.
Which is
Like,
part of
good
Europe.
for them.
Yeah.
It's European country Israel just won
And
Eurovision.
maybe they could have like a Eurovision for podcasts too. That maybe Americans could join.
They could, yeah. Israel, that version of Israel, like the version of Israel now, it's a fucked up country because it's all, again, the only people with the rights are Jews. Name one show from there.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're in
absolutely.
treatment.
Yeah, we're the show.
Homeland.
No,
where
dude.
they got those
wait,
ideas.
what's it fucking called? What's the weird show about teenagers like being bisexual?
Euphoria.
Euphoria. Like
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, cool. Glad we invented that one. Like,
Yeah, we're the show making race. But if we were in Germany, like, we would take part in the grand tradition of German comedy.
Yes, just like sausage incidents.
Yeah.
If that was where Israel was, I would be like one of those just Russian guys who lied about being Jewish after the fall of the Soviet Union. So like, yeah, I'm Jewish. I just cuts a fucking yarmulke out of like a newspaper and puts it on his head.
love those
I would do that. I'd be
Here's
like,
the-
yes,
I
I'm
love
Jewish.
those. I love
buddy. You think You want some proof? All right, let me tell you about how I'm. Tell me about my back. Let me tell you about how I'm feeling right now about my body. let me just walk you through some of my neuroses. They let me in.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about like people talk about like you can't say it's like white supremacists. I'm like, yeah. I mean, they did import like a bunch of literal white neo-Nazis from Russia because they're white in the 90s.
They sterilized actual Jews.
And they like, but like they'll like let you come if you're an actual Nazi. Like there were Nazi skinheads in Tel Aviv, but if you're Palestinian and you try to convert to Judaism, not happening,
not gonna happen, pal.
Fucking sterilized Ethiopian Jews, actual Jews.
They have who have a greater claim on like a
100%. They actually stuck around.
A contiguous like multi-millennial connection to Judaism than like most of the Russian losers who ended up like mutilating.
Or the Americans.
Yeah, but like there is. It's very clearly what's. I do love the Russian guys who just like in like 1989 were like, yeah, I'm Jewish. And it's like, oh yeah, you are the first Jewish guy to kill your wife on an ATV. You're the first Jewish guy who's both friends and enemies with two different pumas.
You're the first Jew to ever filter alcohol through a transistor radio to drink it.
Okay, continue with Friedman. He says, which is why I was not the least bit surprised to read that Netanyahu's longtime ambassador to D.C., Ron Dermer, now retired, bluntly told the conference a few weeks ago, Israel should spend more of its energy reaching out to passionate American evangelicals than Jews, who are disproportionately among our critics. Let me know how that works out for you. If Israel loses the next generation of liberal Americans, including liberal Jews, it is in for a world of political hurt that no amount of evangelical support will be able to blunt. That's not true.
It's not true.
That's not true at all. They would be totally fine and secure as long as like American political patronage.
Well, here's the problem.
They're white. They would love that.
Here's the problem, though. Because right now they have a bipartisan pitch to actual voters. I mean, obviously they have a bipartisan influence machine that generates consent at the top. But even at the base, they have a bipartisan pitch. If they go all in on evangelicals, then they are becoming partisan in a way that could fuck them over.
Yeah.
Because then when you could get a situation where a Democrat could get in there, and not only is there no worry that they have to kiss Israel's ass politically, there's also an actual organized constituency to pressure them to not kiss Israel's ass. And that is dangerous for them. And so to say bet on evangelicals is to say bet on the Republican Party, and that's not a terrible bet. I mean, they have control. Like they have an Alamo there in all of the constitutional structures, like the Senate and gerrymandering and all that. But they are a shrinking demographic. Like if you make that commitment, you are saying that at some point the dam might break, and then we're fucked.
The only other thing they could do then is to there are about 10 million guys on Twitter. They're all from India, and to make them the happiest people that have ever lived. To just be like, yeah, you're Jewish now. They're never gonna do that, but it's that's the only other play.
Yeah. They all. I mean, I'll be real with you, and Felix and I have discussed this privately. If they do Venmo me $500. I will become an influencer for them.
Yeah, I mean that is really what this issue comes down to.
Yeah, we haven't been pandered to.
They've never given me money, and that's a problem. And it's I'm not just a single guy now. I have a niece.
Yeah,
and,
I don't want
in 22 years when she graduates from college, I want to buy her an anti-materiel rifle.
Exactly, and here's the thing: they offer me oh, you can live on the dirtbag kibbutz, and I don't want to. I want to live in a nice apartment.
Yeah,
with someone who wears a wig.
Yeah,
I'm living in Manhattan now, making people unsafe every day, and it feels great.
If you can listen. Israel, I'm talking directly to you now because you do make up 75% of Chapo subscribers to boost the numbers. If you get me this dollar scale bra deal, I will do anything except publicly support you or privately anything that requires more than half a mile of walking that you want.
Well, I'm gonna finish this one out here. I mean, there's a lot more to go, but I'm just gonna really a couple more paragraphs. He says, and then there is Hamas. As usual, indeed, right on cue, the morning after the Gaza ceasefire took effect, Hamas's leaders declared another glorious victories. I guarantee you, though, The morning after, another set of conversations started in Gaza. It was the Gazan shopkeeper, widow, doctor, and mourner surveying the damage to their homes and offices and families, quietly saying to Hamas, "What the hell were you thinking? Who starts a war with the Jews and their Air Force in the middle of a pandemic? Who is going
In the middle of a pandemic?
In the middle of a pandemic, who is going to rebuild my home and business? We can't take this any longer." Thomas, Mr. Friedman, I can guarantee you that that conversation was not taking place anywhere. Because, by the way, the question, who's going to rebuild my home and business? The answer is no one, because Israel doesn't let construction equipment or supplies into
Also,
Gaza.
this idea that Hamas is going to be delegitimized by their insistence on resisting Israel. Who are they going to give power? Who are they going to cede power to? The people who like getting bombed and don't have a problem with it? Like, there is no other force of people who are like, we're going to make a deal with the Israelis.
Israelis systematically killed like every leader of the Palestinian resistance, except for ones that, well,
yeah, were useful.
Yeah, and so
they have the situation that they wanted, and that's the thing. Every time they point to Hamas and say they're the obstacle, it's the end result of their intentional policy. It has helped them to have Hamas in there.
That's what they're going to do with the Indian guys on Twitter. They're going to be like, you're Palestinians now, but you like us. From what I've seen,
we're going to like just airdrop you into the Gaza Strip to vote for our guy.
Yeah, and like from what I've seen of those guys on Twitter, like they would do that.
Yeah.
Like whenever there's like the guys who like, whenever there's a girl on Twitter who's like being like their thing is that they're like a Zionist ambassador, and their like profile picture is always like the one angle of their face where it's not huge, and the guy is replying to him and he's like, I want a husband into your life. It's like that dude would do all that. He would be a fake Palestinian.
It's so funny how like actual Israelis just tell them to fuck off.
Yeah,
Like,
they're like, we hate you. Like,
I shouldn't feel bad for the Indian guys, because it's like that's clearly just like they just want to do this because they hate Muslims.
Yeah.
But it is like, it's like very like sad, because they are like so hard up for Israel, and they're so like, I'll join for free, you know. And every Israeli, like, they can't just accept that they like them. They're just such racist, like, nasty people that they're like, fuck you, you shit drinking cocksucker.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, dude, just awful. Awful place.
Well, I'm not going to read. I mean, Friedman goes on for more and more, but he just says to Joe
Shocking.
Biden, he's like, hey, you know, if you don't want to go all in on the Middle East peace deal, I won't blame you, but you know, it's not going to get any better on its own.
Well, but the whole entire premise of the thing is that America could be in any way a broker of peace. How can it be that when it is the sponsor of the one side with actual power?
Yes.
Who is it negotiating with? It won't allow any independent thing to stand up to exist to negotiate with. It's all consumed by the same structure. So where the hell are we? It's all internal negotiation if it were to exist at all. It cannot be a real peace process. And part of the fantasy that these guys are peddling is that it's still viable.
I don't know. Has Joe Biden considered bringing in Jared Kushner? I feel like
He's coming off the bench.
I'm saying maybe we didn't give that guy enough time.
Nonpartisan.
He's coming off the bench and he has a new face.
This guy's a long drink of water.
The deal that he tried to pitch, it really is like like the only thing that would be in like an SNL sketch about it that didn't exist is like there was no offer of like a fucking casino in Ramallah because it was literally, hey, we'll buy some land from Jordan.
Yeah.
And then you can go there.
Fucking brain
And that was
geniuses.
supposed to work. It's just like, look, folks, this is a business. This is a real estate deal.
Yeah, well, wasn't there like there's gonna have like highways or like underground things connecting all? Because if you look at a map of like where the Palestinians live in the West Bank,
Oh, it's been totally honeycombed. Like,
exactly.
yeah.
It looks
It's
like
just Bantu
fucking.
stands.
It looks like
It's triggering my tryptophobia.
HPV warts on fucking year
Yeah, and then they're like, we'll just buy a chunk of Jordan and then just move everybody over there. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
The thing about like looking at it as a real estate deal, and so you send Jared to do it, is like he's like not even good at
He's
real
terrible
estate.
about
He
it.
sucks
No.
at it.
It's a trope. How much money do you lose on that fucking
But
building?
him and Biden can bond over having new faces because Biden is like on his third or fourth face since being inaugurated.
Oh man, they are cranking it so hard. Like they're turning that flesh lump
Yeah.
Flashlight.
at the base of his neck. They're just twisting that motherfucker. Yeah. He is getting cranked. He looks like the fucking Disney guy from Venture Brothers, the guy in the wheelchair.
Editor's note: Matt is referring to Mr. Brisby from Venture Brothers Season 1, Episode 4, The Incredible Mr. Brisby.
He's gonna eventually die of it, and it's gonna make fucking Hunter into like a Kanye type figure. It just drives him insane.
Yeah, every time he like speaks in front of the cabinet or anything, it's like fucking Grandpa Sawyer at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre dinner. Where they're putting the hammer in his hand to get him to try to kill her.
They're like, Joe is getting the syringe from Minority Report like 3 times a day. Like, he is fucked up.
He is so turned. The drugs that they must have him on.
Amazing.
But
Just imagine.
It was all worth it for the St. Patrick's Day celebration. Like, that was the best day of his life.
No, that was the best day of his life. That was his handsome hamburger party.
Yeah, that was
his handsome quarterback hamburger party.
That was that is the perfect American event. Just like a guy who's German being like, I've been Irish my whole life.
Listen, Jack, being white in America, it's kind of uncomfortable. So you got to find a way to be not white. And so we're Irish.
Yeah, that was like, if he just did that, I would vote for him again. But I'm not. You know,
Someone
this time
should
it's not this
him,
time because I'm pushing him left.
Someone really should remind Joe about all of the bonds of solidarity and cooperation that exist between the Irish Republican movement and the fucking Palestinians.
True.
That's true.
They taught them how to make most of the bombs.
Yes. Yeah. Well, fellas, this is all just part of being the junior partner in the coalition.
Moving on from Tony Blair, I think we're going to round out the show today with a choice reading series about Afghanistan from one of its most sage prophets and scribes. Of course, we are returning once again to Thomas Friedman. Thomas Friedman, a guy who in November 2001 wrote that the Taliban was gone forever and that war worked, has now come out today. And like this article by Thomas Friedman, we've covered him a lot on the show, but I think like this is him really like suffering some sort of mental break.
He's going crazy in the booth. he's spazzing on the mic here.
And like, this is what I mean, is it like, as our empire grinds down and now comes tooth and claw up against like the real harsh reality of what it means to be a fading, failed empire, having to, retreat in disgrace and humiliation after being defeated roundly after 20 years of spending all that money and trying so hard to fucking, I don't know, make Afghanistan a country that could orderly process the heroin and minerals that we need. This is Thomas Friedman now, who has just retreated entirely into his mind palace. This is his opinion column from last Thursday, which somehow I did not get this article before we recorded, but here it is now. 3 people I would interview about Afghanistan. This entire column is just a play that he wrote in his head about him having imaginary conversations. It's like, it's like when you're in the shower, like the day after you were at a bar or something, and you come up with the zinger that you should have said, and you do it to yourself in the shower, and you're like, fuck, I wish I had a time machine. This is his version of that.
Thomas Friedman's best columns are like, they're like the Nas songs that are stupid.
Like I Can.
Yeah, it's like the Nas songs where it's like, oh, I'm gonna rap from the perspective of a gun. Oh, wouldn't this be cool?
All right, so this is Thomas Friedman writing the New York Times. As I watch events in Afghanistan unfold, I find myself trying to ignore all the commentary and longing instead to interview 3 people: President Lyndon Johnson, Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Mohammad Zahir Shah, the last king of Afghanistan. So I love right here, he's just like, as the events unfold in Afghanistan, I find myself shutting out all of the news and commentary about what's actually going on that may lead me to, I don't know, face up to my role in all of it. Instead, here's an imaginary conversation I have with 3 people, one of whom has been dead for 30 years.
Thomas Friedman is plural gang. He has headmates.
So first up is, this is all written like a dialogue. So first up is Friedman. President Johnson, 2 of these people have been dead for quite a long time. President Johnson, what did you think of Joe Biden's speech about quitting Afghanistan? President Johnson, well, I say now. I said to President Biden, I see here, you never seen a cock this big, and then I slapped him with it. I pulled it out of my pants, slapped him in the face with it, with jumbo. No, it goes, President Johnson, I listened to it, and I have to say that I choked up. If I had the guts to give that speech on April 7th, 1965, about America's involvement in Vietnam, the war that I inherited and then expanded with that speech, promise me one thing, you won't link to that speech. Sorry, Mr. President, but I already did.
Thomas, you're spazzing in the G-Doc with President Johnson.
So then he shares Lyndon Johnson's speech about Vietnam. So Johnson replies, yes, Mr. Friedman, I wish I had said what Biden did and what his predecessors never would. How many more generations of Americans' daughters and sons would you have me send to fight Afghanistan's civil war when Afghan troops will not? I mean, that's funny because that's exactly what Johnson said right before he sent a shitload of American troops to Vietnam. So he basically did already say that.
Well, that is how a man with a comically huge dick is cursed. He's always cursed to do it. He's always cursed to do the dangerous thing. A man with Joe Biden's dick, which I assume, probably normal like
Irish Joe.
Length.
We all know. Come on.
The width of a jewel, let's say. He's like, no, I know when my time's up, man. Bye.
Okay, so that was President Johnson. Now moving on to President Xi. President Xi, what do you think of all of the American commentators proclaiming China a winner from Biden's withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan? Oh my, these are what we call useful idiots. What planet are these people living on? I love that he captures Xi's voice so perfectly.
Really, yeah. It's amazing how all the great figures of history all sound exactly like Thomas Friedman.
What planet are these people living on? We had a perfect situation going before Biden came along. America was hemorrhaging lives, money, energy, and focus in Afghanistan. And its presence was making the country just safe enough for Chinese multinationals to exploit. The Metallurgical Corporation of China and Jiangxi Copper had a contract to develop a copper mine, and the China Natural Petroleum Corporation was working on a field in the north of the country. And the Americans were funding the overall security. That is our idea of perfection. Alas, neither of these projects got off the ground because of the craziness in the Kabul government. But Afghanistan is hugely rich in minerals we need. Who will protect our investors after the Americans have stopped doing it for free? Not me. Friedman. How about the Taliban? The Taliban? You think that we trust them? Have you noticed what their brothers in the Pakistani Taliban have been doing to our investments in Pakistan? Just read this Wall Street Journal from July 28th. Blah, blah, blah. Who cares? He goes, Pakistan cannot even keep us safe from its own Taliban and Baloch separatists in their own country. And we own Pakistan. And don't even get me started on how the Taliban victory could inspire our Uyghur Muslims. Joe, what did you do to us, Joe? You should have listened to your foreign policy experts and stayed in Afghanistan. The last thing we want is you refocusing all of America's resources and energy on competing with us for the industries of the 21st century instead of chasing the Taliban around the Hindu Kush. So that's a little glimpse inside the mind of.
He's having the world's littest dinner party.
Yes.
Now, next up, Mohammad Zahir Shah was the last king of Afghanistan, who ruled from 1933 until he was deposed by his brother-in-law in 1973, triggering nearly a half-century of coups, wars, and invasions. He was the last of a 226-year dynasty of Pashtun monarchs to rule Afghanistan. Your Highness, what do you think of Biden's decision to just quit Afghanistan and of the Taliban takeover? Let me tell you a few things about my country. The first thing you have to know is that we are and always will be a mosaic of many different languages and cultures and ethnicities and approaches to Islam. There are 14 ethnic groups recognized in our national anthem. Biden goes on to list all of them. Friedman goes on to list all of them. The reason the country was relatively peaceful under my leadership until my idiot cousin toppled me was that people saw me as a unifying symbol to whom they could all relate. The Taliban represent only one element in our mosaic, Pashtun Sunni Islamism. Since they were ousted by the Americans 20 years ago, all they have been thinking about is how again to own the Afghanistan they lost, not how to govern anew the Afghanistan that exists today. Let me tell you, Mr. Friedman, more than 70% of Afghanistan's population is under 25 years old. Most of them know nothing about the Taliban and have never heard of Mullah Omar, just like all those 20-somethings in Iran who have never heard of the Shah and give Iran's Islamic rulers grief every day. They have been raised in a different Afghanistan, in a different age, and they will not easily give up on the freedoms they enjoyed these past 20 years, even if the country was a mess. Tribes in this part of the world, Mr. Friedman, have a saying, me and my brother against my cousin. Me and my brother and my cousin against the outsider. Americans were the outsider, and the Taliban could always find plenty of passive and active cousins for its project of getting you out. It's the cousin. 70% of Afghans' population are cousins. They're cousins and nephews. The Taliban have no idea how to govern a modern country. Vietnam's nationalist leader, Ho Chi Minh, spent his exile in Paris. These Taliban guys studied at best in madrasas in Pakistan, where they don't even teach science. They don't even freaking love science. How are they going to govern a country like Afghanistan? Here's my prediction. The Taliban will either form a national unity government with all the major ethnic and tribal groups under loose centralized control and will sort of hold the country together and be able to enlist foreign aid, or they won't. If they do, President Biden's bet on getting out will prove right, that America's presence was actively preventing Afghans from compromising and coming together to govern themselves. Maybe they will find one of my family's descendants to be the symbolic unifier. I repeat, my reign corresponded with one of the most peaceful eras in Afghan history. So this is just Thomas Friedman with a Ouija board channeling a dead man to basically plant in the New York Times his recommendations for what should be done in Afghanistan, which is finding another cousin related to this family and making them king again.
Everyone will love that. The guy that basically nobody living there remembers. They'll have a great time.
So using like Friedman's law, not only will the Taliban not form a coalition government, they are now possibly, because the other thing is like they'll collapse, they're going to take over Europe now. Like all the alarmists were right. They're going to, the EU will be run by the Taliban. England, luckily, will be following soon. Heard it here first. It is now written in stone.
Just going to say, but if the Taliban try to keep power all by themselves with no cousins,
dude, don't ask me to get down without my cousins.
The country will eventually resist it. The Taliban will crack down harder, and Afghanistan will not implode. It will explode. It will break up into different regions and hemorrhage refugees and instability. It will be very ugly, and America and Biden will be blamed for the chaos. But America will also be gone. Afghanistan will then be a huge problem for its neighbors, particularly Pakistan, China, Russia, and Iran. Then Friedman closes out by saying, Pakistan, China, Russia, and Iran? Maybe Biden had that in mind all along. Yeah, he's playing 4D chess here.
Yeah, I think we all know what's in Biden's mind. It's Betty Boop working at a milkshake stand. It's a car that never runs out of gas.
A skeleton who sounds like Cab Calloway.
It's a hand job during the 7th inning stretch.
I do like the idea of the most precious resources in Afghanistan is not women and girls, it's cousins and nephews.
Absolutely.
That is beautiful. I do like that he said that. I do. There's something to it.
Well, there we go.
Give me enough cousins and I will move the world. Our community said that.
Well, there you go. That is a glimpse inside the mind palace of imperial decline. Just absolutely
and mental decline.
Yes, everything's declining at a nice steady rate.
And like this is why Friedman makes the big bucks, because it's like here's a real world, like actual politics and news is happening that relates to something he's been writing about and advocating for the last 20 years on behalf of. And he's like, okay, for my column this week, all right, gonna knock this one out of the park. Nope, not gonna talk about it in the commentary or news or history. Gonna make up a conversation with 3 guys in my head. Share that with you. Here you go.
I love the thing I love about him and why he's kind of the best is he does not need the money.
Mm-mm.
His wife is a billionaire.
Yeah, his in-laws, they're shopping mall and real estate magnates. He doesn't need the money. He lives in a fucking palace. Even if he's making combined from the columns and speaking engagements, let's say $750,000 a year. That's a drop in the bucket to the dividends and shit.
He's doing it for the love of the game.
He loves this, man. He's not very good at it, but through being so bad at it, he kind of is good at it because no one else would really do this. No one else in the world.
Yeah, no one would have that thought after a couple of falls to have a brain party with dead guys.
I used to be mad oh, why is this fucking guy? They should fire this guy. This guy sucks. And then it's the other people they get are just quotidian libs who are don't make fun of people who died, or just like conservatives who represent 12 of the dumbest people ever in Manhattan. And it's like, no, keep this guy. He is. None of his beliefs are original. They're just what you're supposed to hear at Davos. But his execution is totally original.
Yeah, it's true.
Yep. He's a virtuoso. You know what I'm saying? Like there's nobody in the game like him. And like I said, like so many of the people we talk about on the show, like you could try to copy them if you wanted to, and you could maybe do a pretty good impression. But like only the nephew and cousin brain. Only a brain powered by the cousins can come up with a column this good.
And he's awesome. Like the worst people in the world are like, okay, we're gonna get him to speak at our like Skull and Bones alumni group at a restaurant where you can like kill the waiter. And he like gets in there and he's like, well, Afghanistan's always had a nephew gap. And they're like, oh wow. Like, what an awesome guy.
King.
Today's reading series, it comes courtesy of a guy we haven't done him in a minute, but this is another masterpiece from him. This is Thomas Friedman coming through the New York Times op-ed that is very highly regarded. Let's put it that way. It is Biden-Cheney 2024. This is Thomas Friedman. Okay, so it begins. As I've noted before, one reason I pay very close attention to the Israeli-Palestinian arena is that a lot of trends get perfected there first and then go global. Airline hijacking, suicide bombing, building a wall. The challenges...
Did he say building a wall?
Yeah, building a wall.
Yeah, no one did that before.
They invented walls.
Yeah.
This is why I pay close attention to the Hadrian arena, Emperor Hadrian. A lot of the trends that he pioneered in Scotland have taken off in the 21st century.
You might as well say they pioneered things like members of two different religious ethnic groups hating each other. The first time it's been done.
It says here, things like airline hijacking, suicide bombing, building a wall, the challenges of pluralism, and lots more. It's off Broadway to Broadway. So what's playing there these days that might be a harbinger for politics in the U.S.? Answer. It's the most diverse national unity government in Israel's history, one that stretches from Jewish settlers on the right all the way to an Israeli Arab Islamist party and super liberals on the left. Most important, it's holding together, getting stuff done, and muting the hyperpolarization that was making Israel ungovernable.
Everything's going great.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's like... Yeah, like, oh, wow, like, what a diverse political party. I mean, it's like, its views on everything from the West Bank to the Gaza Strip range from open extermination to quiet extermination.
Yeah.
It goes, is that what America needs in 2024? A ticket of Joe Biden and Liz Cheney? Or Joe Biden and Lisa Murkowski? Or Kamala Harris and Mitt Romney? Or Stacey Abrams and Liz Cheney? Or Amy Klobuchar and Liz Cheney? Wow, this guy's really, he's ran out of women to talk about here. It's just basically one person he's thinking of.
Damn, you think he likes Liz Cheney? This is like the Liz Cheney equivalent of the guy who acts like, like Brandy Love or someone who's like, are you doing a POV anal scene? Like every day. Are you running a Unity ticket with Stacey Abrams?
Thomas, please understand that I do not know. I do not know when my scene with Stacey Abrams is coming out. He goes, before you leap into the comments section, hear me out. In June, after an utterly wild period in which Israel held 4 national elections over 2 years and kept failing to produce a stable governing majority, the lambs there actually lay down with the lions. Key Israeli politicians swallowed their pride, softened policy edges, and came together for a 4-year national unity government, led by rightist Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and left-of-center alternative Prime Minister Yair Lapid. They also are to switch places after 2 years. And for the first time, an Israeli Arab party, the Islamist organization RAM, played a vital role in cementing an Israeli coalition. I love whenever Thomas Friedman gets excited about, like, I won't say a new government on the world, but he's just like, hey, like, here's this fun thing that's happening overseas. Here's a new leader that really might have it. And, I mean, the last time he was talking about was the MBS, who then chainsawed Thomas Friedman's friend to death in the Saudi consulate in Turkey.
I mean, friend, but you never know what's going on in the scenes. Everyone's drilling. All the libs are drilling.
What forced everyone's hand? A broad agreement that Israeli politics was being held hostage by then Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who resisted putting together any government that he would not lead, apparently because if he didn't lead, he could lose his chance at some kind of immunity from prosecution on multiple corruption charges that could lead to prison. Sound familiar? Netanyahu was just a smarter Donald Trump, constantly delegitimizing the mainstream media and the Israeli justice system. Yeah, God forbid anyone delegitimize the Israeli media or justice system. And vigorously exploiting social, religious, ethnic fault lines to divide and rule. Isn't that just the definition of Israel, period? Like, it isn't like any government of Israel, no matter what party or coalition is formed, is going to, by definition, exploit social, religious, and ethnic fault lines to literally physically divide and rule?
Yeah. That's the whole job.
Yeah, that's the job description. He eventually stressed out the system so much that several of his former allies broke away to forge a unity coalition with Israeli center-left and Arab parties. As Hebrew University of Jerusalem religious philosopher Moshe Halbertal put it to me, what happened here is that there is still enough civic responsibility, not everywhere, but enough, that the political class felt that the continued breakdown of the rule of law and more elections, which was leading nowhere, was an indulgence that Israel simply could not afford, given its highly diverse population and dangerous neighborhood. I love when they throw in the dangerous neighborhood thing.
Dangerous neighborhood.
We live in a dangerous neighborhood. We live in a very dangerous neighborhood. And then I love this, like, there's just, God, I mean... what's funny though is that Thomas Friedman doesn't mention that in every one of these 4 elections in the last 2 years was just happened to coincide with the absolute fucking like hammering of the Gaza Strip by the Israeli Air Force. So like there's like just one of those happening every year, so they kill like a few thousand people. Like that's just like Israeli society, like that decency or indecency doesn't touch them. They're like, oh, we're having too many elections.
Yeah.
We need to take up civic responsibility.
I gotta see these ads one more time.
When they're selling tickets to a hillside where you can watch people in an open air prison get pulverized by multi-billion-dollar weapon systems, that's I guess that's the opposite of polarization.
Yeah,
that's bringing everyone together.
That's called the unity ticket. Literally, a ticket you can buy. This new Israeli government will neither annex the West Bank nor make final peace with the Palestinians, Halbertal noted, but it is one that will attempt to renew the relationship with the Palestinian Authority rather than weakening it. It is one that prevented a racist anti-Arab party allied to Netanyahu from entering the cabinet. I mean, oh God, God forbid a racist anti-Arab party enter Israeli government. Thank God the adults are in charge who, don't hate Arabs and aren't racist against them.
Yeah, a racist ideologue in charge of the Ethiopian neutering program. Terrible. Hate that.
And it is one that is counterbalancing Bibi's strong embrace of the less than democratic ultra-nationalist states in Europe and evangelical Christians and Trump Republicans in America by rebuilding ties with the Democrats, liberal American Jews, and liberal parties in Europe. As Israeli leaders treat each other, and Israeli and Palestinians leaders treat each other with a little more respect, a little less contempt, because they are out of Facebook and into the face-to-face relations again. Stuff is getting done. I gotta read that sentence again. As Israeli leaders treat each other, and Israeli and Palestinian leaders treat each other with a little more respect and a little less contempt, because they are out of Facebook and into face-to-face relations again, stuff is getting done.
It's kind of a bar, Thomas.
Unity has not meant paralysis. This coalition in November passed Israel's first national budget since 2018. So far, every attempt to topple it has failed.
So this, first of all, like this government, like next week is going to collapse. That's written in the stars. Not because, he's authored their misery just by writing this article. But just that the people in the coalition, to Thomas Friedman's knowledge, are nice to each other. That's it.
That's what matters.
That's the entire article. Damn, no one can stretch product like Thomas Friedman. No one can make the most out of like $70 worth of cocaine and then some cornstarch and baby laxative.
Mansour Abbas, the Islamist party's leader, even recently stunned many Israeli Arabs and Jews when he publicly declared Israel was born a Jewish state. That was the decision of the people. He continued, it was born this way and it will remain this way. The question is, what is the status of the Arab citizen in the Jewish state of Israel? Wow, he stunned political observers with that astonishing admission. There's no answer to that question. What is the status of the Arab citizen in the Jewish state of Israel? The coalition government will decline to answer that question and kicked it. That's an issue for future. We're tabling that for future debate.
It'll be circled back to.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, could this play come to Broadway? I asked Stephen Levitsky, a political scientist and co-author of How Democracies Die, after he presented some similar ideas last week to my colleague David Leonhardt. America is facing an existential moment, Levitsky told me, noting that the Republican Party has shown that it isn't committed any longer to playing by democratic rules, leaving the United States uniquely threatened among Western democracies. That all means two things, he continued. First, this Trump cult version of the GOP must never be able to retake the White House. Since Trump has made embracing the big lie that the 2020 election was a fraud a prerequisite for being in the Trump GOP. His entire cabinet most likely would be people who denied or worked to overturn Biden's election victory. There is no reason to believe that they would cede power the next time. I think it's important that, as you know, America as our democracy teeters on the brink, and old bigotries and sort of like ethnic prejudices and hatreds rear their ugly heads. I think it's really important that we look at Israel, because they've solved the problem by just making over half the people not able to vote in any election to choose their government. And
I think that's the Republican solution to this whole thing, and I think Thomas needs to give it a hearing if he's such a big fan of Israel and their policies.
It goes, in a democracy, Levitsky said, parties lose popularity and they lose elections. That is normal. But a democracy cannot afford for this Republican Party to win again because they have demonstrated a ton of evidence that they are no longer committed to the democratic rules of the game. So Biden-Cheney is not such a crazy idea, I asked. Not at all, Levitsky said. We should be ready to talk about Liz Cheney as part of a blow-your-mind Israeli-style fusion coalition. A blow-your-mind style Israeli fusion. This sounds like a fucking restaurant. A blow-your-mind style Israeli fusion restaurant.
The worst restaurant on earth.
Israeli. A blow-your-mind style Israeli fusion restaurant.
Israeli fusion, the world's worst development in energy production. They split the atoms in an unstable ecstasy tablet.
It goes, we should be ready to talk about Liz Cheney as part of a blow-your-mind Israeli-style fusion coalition with Democrats.
A blow-your-mind POV scene with Liz Cheney.
It is a coalition that says there is only one overriding goal right now. That is saving our democratic system.
Yes, sir.
And Liz Cheney's going to do it.
Yeah. That brings us to the second point. Saving a democratic system requires huge political sacrifice, added Levitsky. It means AOC campaigning for Liz Cheney, and it means Liz Cheney putting on the shelf many policy goals she and other Republicans cherish. Gee, I wonder which one of those things is more likely to happen.
Yeah. We don't have her in government now, and they're basically doing the Republican fucking policies.
But that is what it takes. And if you don't do it, just look back and see why democracy collapsed in countries like Germany, Spain, and Chile. Well, in one of those, because the United States government literally overthrew their democratic government. I don't think democracy in Chile collapsed because the parties didn't trust each, or there wasn't a fusion style coalition of fascists and social democrats. I think it was because one side was the scales were tipped in their direction by the most powerful country on the planet. The democratic forces there should have done it, but they didn't. To put it differently, this Trump cult version of the GOP is trying to gain power through an election, but it's trying to increase its odds of winning by gaming the system in battleground states. This just sounds like what any political party. I mean, I know Republicans really do want to make it impossible for anyone who's not a Republican to vote, but if everyone can game the system, then why aren't the Democrats gaming the system to their own advantage? I mean, Republicans would argue that voting rights laws are gaming the system to their advantage.
Yes, they do that all the time. They say that explicitly. Reaching out to people who might vote for you and convincing them to vote for you is considered fraudulent, which makes anything they do acceptable to fight it.
It goes here. The best way to do that is by creating a broad national unity vehicle. A broad national unity vehicle.
Broad national unity vehicle.
It's like the
Toyota Tundra.
Oscar Mayer Wiener mobile.
I guess
it's an Israeli-style fusion vehicle.
I guess that's the Merkava after it drove over Hezbollah IEDs and fused with its drivers.
A broad national unity vehicle that enables more Republicans to leave the Trump.
By the way, that's the subtitle of Rollin', I believe, by Limp Bizkit. Rollin', a.k.a. Broad National Unity Vehicle.
Well, every few years they try this in the UK of all places, where if it's going to work anywhere, it's going to work there. No one's into it. Nobody.
Well, also, it's a totally specious comparison because we don't have a parliamentary system. When these parties come together in a unity government, they are bringing with them their constituencies. They're bringing with them the votes in the Knesset. Liz Cheney is just some broad.
Why didn't
she brings no one? The Republicans who Liz Cheney would bring to a Democratic ticket in an election are all on the masthead of the New York Times or the Washington Post. No actual Republican voters are going to give a shit about her, are going to vote for Democrats over Republicans because she's on the ticket. It would change nothing about the overall underlying dynamics between the two parties because it's not a fucking parliamentary system.
And you know what? I know we've talked about this before, but as long as Thomas Friedman is talking about how the Trump cult GOP can never be allowed to regain power because they all believe in the big lie that Biden stole the 2020 election. I mean, it should bear repeating here that Liz Cheney is the daughter of a man who fucking authored at least one stolen presidential election.
Yeah,
at least one
in the United States.
in the United States. Forget foreign countries. But I mean, a Bush Cheney ticket in 2000, absolutely stole that election.
Right, of course.
Probably in 2004.
I guess, and the thought is but remember, she's the daughter of the vice president from Bush. You guys liked her. No, they don't. They fuck her. They don't like her anymore. She has no constituency.
The Democrats love Cheney and Bush now. Did you see that thing on the January 6th committee where Democrats lined up to shake Dick Cheney's hand, and then they had a Zoom performance from the Hamilton cast? Yeah. I mean, it's just like stealing our material. What the fuck? We did that joke 7 months ago.
Yeah, that was when that happened. It was like, man, is this like a gritty account from 2017 saying this is happening? This is the dream of every left-wing NPC account, this happening, and they just do it. You know who wouldn't have shaken up with Dick Cheney? The liberal driller.
No.
Nope. Put him in a fucking arm bar.
Yeah, he would have been like, once my op, always my op. Fuck you.
It goes here. The best way to do that is by creating a broad national unity vehicle that enables more Republicans to leave the Trump cult without having to just become big D Democrats. We all have to be small D Democrats. Small D.
Yeah,
small,
well, I know
small D energy.
I know one big D Democrat.
Yeah, the drill team in Florida.
Yeah, and he's caught at least one body.
we all have to be small d Democrats now, or we won't have a system to be big D or big R, any big D or hard
I think
R,
you're big R,
anything.
Thomas.
Yeah.
I think you're I think you're the biggest R,
Big
probably.
R. This is what civic-minded Israeli elites did. Sorry, I gotta. Every line of this, I just trip over because just the phrase "civic-minded Israeli elites." It's like there's like everything like being civic-minded in Israeli politics means that like no matter what political party you're a part of, you are wholeheartedly dedicated to the ethnic cleansing of half the population of Israel that you don't regard as Israeli.
He means they take a Honda Civic to go to Jeffrey Epstein's mansion on the Upper East Side, as Ehud Barak did.
Civic-minded Israeli elites did when they created a broad national unity coalition whose main mission was to make the basic functions of government work again and safeguard the integrity of Israel's democracy. I mean, come on, like it's to safeguard the integrity of Israel's democracy. I mean, just. I don't think we need to like keep that. Don't keep that anywhere safe. You know what I mean? Like it's not worth much. Such a vehicle in America, said Levitsky, should be able to shave a small but decisive fraction of Republican votes away from Trump. In a tight race, it would take only 5 or 10% of Republicans leaving Trump to assure victory, and that is what matters. This is the democratic way of defeating a threat to democracy. Not doing it is how democracies die. I'm quite aware that it is highly unlikely. America does not have the flexibility of a parliamentary proportional representation system like Israel's, and there is no modern precedent for such a cross-party ticket. And yet, I still think it's worth raising. There is no precedent for how close we're coming to an unraveling of our democracy either. As Levitsky puts it, if we treat this as a normal election, our democracy stands a coin flip's chance of survival. Those are odds that I don't want to run. We need to communicate to the public and the establishment that this is not a normal donkeys versus elephants election. This is a democracy versus authoritarians.
I hate authoritarianism. My least favorite ideology.
This is not for the long term, noted Levitsky. I want to get back as quickly as possible to where I can disagree with Liz Cheney on every policy issue. And that is the most we have to worry about, but not until our democracy is safe. I mean, I just like, I don't know if it's after reading that or it's just a growing feeling I've had over and over again. It's just like the Washington Post masthead, this democracy dies in darkness. I say faster, please. I mean, can we please kill our democracy faster? Like, I'm so sick of this shit. It's so pathetic.
Getting irritating at this point.
It's so pathetic.
I mean, and I'm sorry, I cannot take you seriously when your insistence that we face a existential threat to American democracy is coupled with a prescription for that being put Liz Cheney on the ticket. Put this person who nobody cares about, who is not a news-addicted dork. And that if that's your prescription for the situation, I just can't take it seriously. And none of the people who are really most frantic about the idea that our democracy is dying and are terrified of it have anything better than put Dick Cheney on the ticket.
Or for that matter, that you're the country you want to be more like. If you're sounding the alarm about democracy is dying, the death of our institutions, authoritarianism, we should be more like Israel.
Yeah.
like, okay, if authoritarianism is a thing, what the fuck is making people live in an open air prison? What is What is making second class citizens out of almost your entire fucking Arab population? Well, what the fuck is that?
And if this is all like, our democracy stands a coin's flip's chance if Trump runs again, well then, if Thomas Friedman, if you really believe that, then why aren't you advocating the Khashoggi treatment for this asshole? I mean, you've got friends in high places. I mean, just drill this asshole. Be over and done with it. Then we can get back to having normal Republican politicians.
Yeah, like anybody who's really serious about this in the halls of power, they're taking meetings that are not public. They're like figuring out ways to use like Novichok or fucking ricin or something.
What is like Liz Cheney doing when she's not like saying Trump is disgusting? She wants to take a fucking hammer to every part of the Democratic coalition. She hates teachers unions. She like just any like base that needs anything from the Democratic Party. She fucking hates. That that is probably the least workable coalition. Just if we're actually going to do this. If we're actually going to do this, there's no part of the Democratic coalition except for like suburbanites who care about January 6th. And they already, okay, that's done. They already voted for Glenn Otherkin. Like, fuck it. It's done. You're cooked. Well, you can't use that one anymore.
But like this is why Thomas Friedman is not using his perch in the New York Times to advocate drilling Donald Trump and ending this problem that plagues us once and for all. It is because Donald Trump existing and what he calls the Trump cult Republican Party has created a condition that is like the long-held dream of people like Thomas Friedman, which is to have basically a one-party government that is like democratic in name, but because of the threat of Trump, can no longer ever actively advocate on behalf of, ideological or political coalitions. It will only just be there to be like the stopgap, and then we'll just like allow Republicans to effectively be in control, but in name, like the Democrats will be running the country. And I guess that's basically what we have now.
That crucial illusion of democratic process that keeps people pliant. Like that's what these people are really freaking out about. Is in their nightmare, the legitimacy is gone, and if that happens, then maybe compliance goes with it. I don't know if that's even true, but that's certainly their nightmare. And if you live in this country at this moment and you see what it's doing, I'm sorry, the prospect of compliance eroding is really our only fucking hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there is any like positive social effect from the Trump years, or, if you really wanted to get crazy and wanted to argue this is from Trump himself, him either showing that institutions are more fragile than we thought, or just his unusual nature as a president of like calling Bette Midler disgusting. It is, the Great Resignation. It's the huge amount of Americans, that I even saw in November quitting their jobs, telling their boss, fuck you. That would be the most positive needed thing in America, is Americans gaining some degree of self-respect that they have not had since NAFTA.
And yeah, it seems that once again, and we don't even know if Trump is running or not, but he probably is. We know how we feel about that. But like, once again, we're back in this situation where this is the most important election of our lives. This is not even about your preferred political party. You're voting to preserve American democracy itself. And God, if that's the case, then never have I been prouder nor ever will I be prouder of not voting. Because at this point, we got to get rid of it. We've got to get rid of it, or at least just stop pretending. We all need to stop pretending. This country is not a fucking democracy.
Yes.
When I saw Michelle Obama telling me this is the most important election, ever, the midterms, that was I didn't just want to continue not voting in those. I wanted to prevent someone else from voting, because it's fuck you. What the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you and Barack Obama doing?
Netflix, baby.
Netflix and destroying historic Chicago parkland. Yeah, it seems real fucking important to you guys. Go fuck yourself. I'm going to call it, no, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm going to put up a fake roadblock in front of wherever people vote in my neighborhood, wherever I am on election day.
I'm gonna draw a tunnel into a wall, Wile E. Coyote style, and have an arrow saying "voting here."
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this out because I don't want to get run up on by the liberal driller. He's gonna hear that, make a fucking example out of me. He's gonna hear voting is what he lives for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't say that to him. I'll be like, I voted, sir.
Yeah, nothing but respect for my liberal driller.
All right. Well. To round things out for today's episode, I have a reading series for you guys with, once again, an old favorite of the show. I don't think we've done one of these in a while, but it's the smartest journalist in the world, the smartest columnist in the world, Thomas Friedman. He's back again, and I'm proud to report. He's been pretty boring lately, but he's come through today with a real masterpiece of the craft of writing, thinking, and being Thomas Friedman. So you guys ready to jump into this one? It's he had lunch with President Biden. He had lunch with President Biden, and he regrets to inform you that the lunch was great, but his vibes are bad. I mean, not Joe Biden's vibes, but Thomas Friedman, he left this delicious lunch feeling bad vibes. So here we go. This is Thomas Friedman writing in the New York Times, My Lunch with President Biden. It's the sequel to My Dinner with Andre. He says, President Biden invited me for lunch at the White House last Monday, but it was all off the record, so I can't tell you anything he said. The article ends there. It was just that one paragraph, unfortunately. He can't tell you anything.
Mm-hmm.
No, he can't. He says, I can, though, tell you two things. What I ate and how I felt after. I ate a tuna salad sandwich with tomato on whole wheat bread with a bowl of mixed fruit and a chocolate milkshake for dessert that was so good it should have been against the law. How would you rate that? How would you rate that lunch order, fellas?
It's a fucking weird lunch. That's like, man, that's like, oh, we're letting the people in the psych ward pick their own lunch today.
Seems very phlegmy.
That's like when Texas executes someone that they really shouldn't. You see their last meal.
It's like gummy bears and a can of Sprite.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so he had fruit salad and a milkshake. Like he had a tuna salad sandwich. Tuna salad sandwich and fruit salad isn't that weird, I guess. But then it's like, oh, you know what would go great with this? A chocolate milkshake.
Yeah, the milkshake's kind of out there.
Well, you know, I mean, you're at the White House. You got to take advantage. You know, you got to get a little White House treat. You know, I would get a milkshake.
I admire his restraint, because if I went to the White House for a meal, I would assume that I'd have that prerogative where I could just order anything.
Yeah,
and I would go ham.
So yeah, that was his lunch order. This is what he can report.
And when I say I would go ham, I would say, do you have one of those like articulated armatures that hold a jamon iberico haunch? Could you wheel one of those out here to just have me slice off like nice thin bits jamon iberico? Maybe wheel out some manchego for me to put it on.
Ooh, yes.
I would show them meals cooked by a certain Jamaican American content creator.
The Secret Service would just draw down on you as soon as you pulled off the top. They would like light you up.
Yeah,
they'd dump eggs in you for presenting that to the president.
I'd be like, could the chef please prepare a classic dish from New York City? Steak, bone in, extra bone, in fact. A slice of American cheese, an entire rosemary plant, 5 eggs, and a bagel.
Oh, don't forget the shell.
Don't forget the shell, and the bagel has to have extra wet on it. That actually, I bet that's like probably what Biden would cook if you left him to his own devices.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, just I don't want to be a pain here, but could you please send back my tuna salad sandwich and could you just add a sprig of thyme and some eggshells on top of it, please? Just a little extra flavor. Do you have any
ever,
fish?
Man.
Do you have any fish?
This is the best movie ever, man. Real men cook, okay?
Could we add any fish to this milkshake, please? Sorry, that was his lunch order, but he says, what I felt afterward was this. For all you knuckleheads on Fox who say that Biden can't put two sentences together, here's a news flash. He just put NATO together, Europe together, and the whole Western alliance together, stretching from Canada up to Finland and all the way to Japan, to help Ukraine protect its fledgling democracy from Vladimir Putin's fascist assault. So, yeah, like, I know it may not seem like that way if you see him on television, but if you have lunch with him, you'll notice he didn't say that Biden can put two sentences together, but he did say he did add Finland to NATO.
It's amazing. He doesn't even intimate at any, like, he doesn't say he was sharp or articulate.
No, he
doesn't say, like, he could have certainly added some sort of like detail to reflect, the old guy has still got it. Couldn't bring himself to do it.
Nope. He says,
also, didn't like Putin really put NATO together?
It's true.
If we're really being honest here, like, didn't Putin go, let's have 20 more years of NATO because I'm going to be dying next year. Enjoy.
Yeah. If this was just on Biden, it would not have occurred. He needed a chef in the kitchen to help pop that one together.
Yeah.
He writes, in doing so, he has enabled Ukraine to inflict significant losses on Russia's invading army, thanks to a rapid deployment of U.S. and NATO trainers and massive transfers of precision weapons. And not a single American soldier was lost.
But the entire country has been turned into a bloody fucking stalemate.
It has been the best performance of alliance management and consolidation since another president whom I covered and admired, who was also said to be incapable of putting two sentences together, George H.W. Bush. Bush managed the collapse of the Soviet Union and the reunification of Germany without firing a shot or the loss of a single American life. Now, I know George H.W. Bush is remembered for a lot of things, or rather not remembered for them, but like, was he ever tagged as being inarticulate? He was tagged as being out of touch. And like,
he only had trouble putting sentences together when you asked him where he was in November of 1963.
I mean, he did have a kind of rep for like kind of relying on sort of airy phrases and a lot of cliches. Not going to do it.
1,000 points of light.
No one thought that he needed to have the clock test. No one was like, does George W. Bush know what day he's living in? It's not comparable.
I just imagine giving like a cognitive test to Biden and asking him who's president right now, like he just got out of a coma. It has been okay. It goes. Alas, though. Okay, so without firing a shot or the loss of a single American life. Alas,
that we know of.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Why do you think so many soldiers have been dying at Fort Bragg lately? I got news for you. They probably didn't die in Fort Bragg.
I mean, there's no way to know, is there?
They killed themselves because they lost money on their Black Rifle coffee stock.
Here is the line of the article, though. This is a classic bit of Thomas Friedman. He goes, "Alas, though, I left our lunch with a full stomach but a heavy heart." That's the kind of fucking
full
writing.
Stomach and a heavy heart.
It's a
Oh,
full
don't go
stomach,
swimming, Tom.
but a heavy heart.
Full stomach, heavy heart, will lose.
Biden didn't say it in so many words, but he didn't have to. He didn't say it at all.
He didn't say it in any words. He spoke no words.
Just an aide dabbing his mouth with a napkin after he finished his milkshake.
Yeah, it's like Grandpa Sawyer from Chainsaw Massacre getting wheeled out to gnaw on the fucking tri-tip.
I just lived out the entirety of the movie Big Fish with Joe Biden, but here's what he said without saying it.
I could hear it between the lines. He's worried that while he has reunited the West, he may not be able to reunite America.
That means that America is going to be reunited in like 6 months. Division's over.
It's clearly his priority above any Build Back Better provision. And he knows that's why he was elected. A majority of Americans worried that the country was coming apart at the seams and that this old warhorse called Biden, with his bipartisan instincts, was the best person to knit us back together. It's the reason he decided to run in the first place, because he knows that without some basic unity of purpose and willingness to compromise, nothing else is possible. But with every passing day, every mass shooting, every racist dog whistle, every defund the police initiative. Okay, like, record scratch? Like, okay, we're throwing like defund the police initiatives along with genocidal acts of terrorism.
Also, like, no one's done a defund the police thing since 2020. Like, every fucking anywhere where Democrats do control, just like every week they pass like a non-binding resolution that they'll like raise the police budget every year.
Yeah, like there aren't really even any voices within the like electoral structure of the Democratic Party that are even talking about that stuff anymore anywhere beyond the municipal level. And the places where they actually have power, Democrats, they've done it. Like that was a 2020 thing, and I think you could argue that it was a branding issue for the Democrats, but the only people who are still talking about defund the police initiatives are Democrats complaining about them to obviate their own responsibility for why they're hated.
Yeah, people really may have forgotten about it by now. If like every week Democrats weren't like, oh, by the way, we hate defund the police.
Yeah,
we're never doing that.
Was it like Amy Klobuchar the other day was like, I'm passing a resolution to honor the 567 police officers who died in the line of duty last year, but like something like 450 of them just died of COVID.
Yeah. The rest of them like had heart attacks at Wendy's.
So like, yeah, this is Thomas Friedman's sort of like laundry list of the things that are, rending America apart. So yeah, every mass shooting, every racist dog whistle, every defund the police initiative, every nation-sundering Supreme Court ruling, every speaker run off campus, every bogus claim of election fraud. I wonder if he can bring us back together. I wonder if it's too late. So,
It's
yeah.
too late, baby. Oh, it's too late.
I gotta wonder. I mean, he probably does, right? Because you don't get like this good if you don't like kind of believe it. Did he like really believe this stuff where Biden's like, oh, I'm gonna like end division?
I honestly
I'm gonna
think
bring
that
America together. He
I think
seemed
that
like
at
he
his
did.
level, guys like him, guys who have like been paid to have opinions their entire lives and never have to like have an unpleasant or adversarial encounter with anyone that they don't want to. I think that they have convinced themselves that that's true, because it's a motivated reasoning. It's a way to stay fat and complacent.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, no,
licking
no.
your fucking mustache all day.
Yeah, no, I think he genuinely does believe it. And I think he also genuinely does believe on a certain level that like you can put things like Milo Yabadabadopoulos getting yelled at on a college campus, or like an activist, promoting defund the police or abolish the police, at the same level of, ending the right to have an abortion, or, like I said, genocidal acts of terrorist mass murder. Because to have that job, though, like it's like you have to believe that everything has an equal and opposite reaction, and that like if people have lost their confidence in America, or no one trusts each other, it seems like our society is rapidly circling the drain. Blame has to be apportioned in a like reasonable both sides fashion.
Right, because like you can recognize polarization, but you have to pretend that it's not an asymmetrical polarization, because that is in their minds like imposing values onto it. That you're not being an objective journalist, but there is an objective reality of the dynamics within the parties that is driving both against one another, polarizing both. But in the case of the Democrats, the people doing this polarizing are the least powerful people within the greater coalition of like Democratic voters and people who participated in politics as Democrats, like one way or the other. Even if they hate the party, they vote for them. The least powerful people are doing the polarization. The Republican Party's actual political infrastructure is completely controlled by people who are at the leading edge of the polarization. So it's a dynamic that has two halves, but they're not equally the power residing in the most confrontational part of the coalition is concentrated with the Republicans, but they can't do anything other than gesture at that.
So he writes, I fear that we're going to break something very valuable very soon. And once we break it, it will be gone, and we may never be able to get it back.
Once we break it, we buy it.
I am talking about our ability to transfer power peacefully and legitimately, an ability we have demonstrated since our founding. The peaceful, legitimate transfer of power is the keystone of American democracy. Break it, and none of our institutions will work for long, and we will be thrust into political and financial chaos. I mean, unlike now.
Seriously.
I'd hate to see what that would look like.
I mean, it's very funny that he says that there's been this unbroken string of peaceful transfers of power, forgetting the fucking civil war that was fought over the outcome of an election. That was a kind of a big deal. And then now you've got the fact that no election could really be said to be legitimate in the way he's pining for since 2000, because 2000 is when all of these fucking things got broken. 2000 smashed this fucking vase. These assholes were the last people to notice because they didn't have to. They're literally in a bubble. At the ground, though, everyone knew, and that knowledge has just slowly been marching up the capillaries of society up to its upper reaches. And now the very last people to get it are fucking dipshits like Friedman. But this has been knowledge on the street since 2000. That was like, yeah, you think that there's one way that we get a president elected, and we're going to just in front of you show, no, that's not what does it.
And I think like that's probably like the exact same reason why for people like Friedman or like anyone who's been writing about like the Supreme Court recently, I think like they genuinely do believe that like the terrible thing about Roe v. Wade being overturned is not the like severe abridgment of human rights it would mean for like half of the country, but it's that like the anger generated at the Supreme Court, or like the loss of legitimacy.
You're undermining our institutional legitimacy.
Yeah. Whereas like like the Supreme Court decision in Bush v. Gore, I mean, like I said, from that moment on, like that, if you didn't realize that the Supreme Court was illegitimate then yeah, like I mean, these people are catching up to it now, but it's the anger at the fact that we have a now more or less openly theocratic, like judicial branch of the government. Like the reality of that, to people like Tom Friedman, who I'm sure is basically pro-choice in his personal beliefs in politics, is entirely secondary to the anger and the anger directed at the court, like not at like the ruling itself, but at the court as an institution in American life that like should not have the authority that it does. Going on, he writes, we are staring into that abyss right now because it is one thing to elect Donald Trump and pro-Trump candidates who want to restrict immigration, ban abortions, slash corporate taxes, pump more oil, curb sex education in schools, and liberate citizens from more mask mandates in a pandemic. Those are policies where there can be legitimate disagreement, which is the stuff of politics. But the recent primaries and investigations around the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol are revealing a movement by Trump and his supporters that is not propelled by any coherent sense of policies, but rather by a gigantic lie that Biden did not freely and fairly win the majority of electoral college votes and therefore is an illegitimate president. Thus, their top priority is installing candidates whose primary allegiance is to Trump and his big lie, not to the Constitution. And they are more than hinting that in any close election in 2024, or even ones that aren't so close, they would be willing to depart from established constitutional rules and norms and award that election to Trump or other Republican candidates who didn't actually garner the most votes. They are not whispering this platform, they are running for office on it. In short, we are seeing a national movement that is telling us publicly and loudly, we will go there. And that terrifies me because, in all caps, I have been there. My formative experience in journalism was watching Lebanese politicians go there in the late 1970s and plunge their frail democracy into a protracted civil war. So don't tell me that it can't happen here. Not when people like Pennsylvania State Senator Doug Mastriano, an election denier who marched through the January 6th crowd at the Capitol, just won the GOP primary to run for governor. Have no doubt these people will never do what Al Gore did in 2000. Okay, I'll stop you right there. They would never do what Al Gore did in 2000, and that's why they're winning and will continue to win.
Because they think there's actually stakes involved.
Yes.
Talk about no one wants to work anymore. This sucks. This is so fucking boring. Holy shit. Like, it's like, I feel like he used to be more interesting.
He used to use he used to use more and better hilarious metaphors, that's for sure.
Yeah, god damn, he is phoning it in. You know, like say that everyone is like caught in the well of malaise. You know, say we're trapped in the quicksand of non-voting. Say that we fell into the chocolate river from Willy Wonka of national division. This is just like, there are 50 other articles that are like this. He's lost it. He doesn't give a shit anymore. It's sad.
No, you're right. Like with his penchant for metaphors, he used to be like the little Carmine of columnists. Like he would always come out with some real shit. Like, you know, we're at the crossroads of a great precipice or something like that.
Well, yeah, but with like the real hook to him, like the only thing I like really did find interesting about him is that he always found like the most crackhead way of going like, oh, here's why like everything that's happening is fine. Like it is kind of funny to write a column every week for like 20 years and your only opinion is like most things are fine.
Yeah.
That is pretty interesting. But
everything's moving in a good direction.
Everything's good. But that like I get it. Like, yeah, theocracy bad, institutions failing, democracy in danger. What are you going to do? Write more articles? I don't care.
Well, I mean,
I care about the stuff that's happening, but it's like you don't seem to have any ideas. I'd be more interested if you were like, this is bad, but most things are fine, and here's why. Yeah, we're gonna make Doug Mastriano watch Frasier.
I think everybody at every level of political commentary, from us on up to Friedman, is trying to reckon with the challenge of articulating like a political moment where there is no reason to believe that there can be any like effective mass action to prevent what's coming, right? Like that is everyone has that belief now at every level. And it's only a question of like, how do they come to terms with it? And like, you can either do what we're, I think, trying to do, which is, you know, maybe not accept basically the premise that, you know, the political moment seems to have passed, but this is what is actually occurring, you know, like as close as we can understand it, as opposed to people like Friedman who are so close to actual power that they feel the need to absolve them of responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? Like the highest levels. So like what he's saying is kind of what we're saying. It's like, yeah, this is happening and nothing can really change it. But he wants to, for example, blame the far left of the Democratic Party, right? He wants to say, we could stop these guys, but these people won't let us. And they have no power over them. They can't. And all they can do is what they have been doing, which is tell them to stop. Well, that hasn't worked. We have no plan to make it more effective of a pitch. So unless they turn around on their own, it won't be our fault, even though they're the actual ones in actual power.
Well, I mean, to that point, Matt, I'll just read the end of the this very boring column, but just get the end of it. He says, Biden is not blameless in this dilemma, nor is the Democratic Party, particularly its far left wing. Under pressure to revive the economy and facing big-ticket demands from the far left, Biden pursued expansive spending for too long. House Democrats also sullied one of Biden's most important bipartisan achievement, a giant infrastructure bill, by making it hostage to other excessive spending demands. The far left also saddled Biden and every Democratic candidate with radical notions like defund the police, an insane mantra that would have harmed the black and Hispanic base of the Democratic Party had it been implemented. To defeat Trumpism, we need, say, only 10% of Republicans to abandon their party and join with a center-left Biden, which is what he was elected to be and still is at heart. But we may not be able to get even 1% of Republicans to shift if far-left Democrats are seen as defining the party's future. And that is why I left my lunch with the president with a full stomach but a heavy heart. I love that his editor at the New York Times let him use that phrase twice. They thought that bar was fire, and they were like, just bring it back at the end. Bring it back at the end, Thomas.
But like his pitch is like even his best case scenario pitch of what to do to beat this is just what they have been doing and what lost them the presidency in 2016. Remember that when this was the strategy. It was the explicit strategy. Of course, you can always blame the far left, but the thing, once again, if they're already always going to be there, and you can't stop them from, being extremists, then the things that have happened in the past will continue to happen in the future, and you are not offering an actual plan. You are offering an excuse. And it's like, that's one thing for us to do, down here in the podcast minds, but it's something else entirely for the actual administration and its like direct media handmaidens to do when they're the ones who actually, are in the White House.
Matt, I do feel like bad for him because it is kind of like, what do you write? Yeah.
Because if you have to keep the right Pollyanna bullshit up, and you run out of stuff fast.
Right. Well, Joe got in there, and it's like, oh, he's the best at shaking hands. He's going to get this done. Oh, looks like Joe didn't get it done. Oh, everything continues to crumble. Well, if you're Thomas Friedman, you can't do a movie episode. We can.
No.
That is one thing we have on him.
Yeah.
Top Gun Maverick coming out this weekend, baby. Let's go.
Oh, baby. How is the danger zone?
He doesn't get anything like that. He can't do any of that. Like when we're like, I'll be honest, like the Biden news cycle is fucking tough. It is like, it's brutal. What I imagine doing this podcast would have been like in 1989. Like it is just like, the substitute is out. They have wheeled the TV out of class. We're doing a version of McLaughlin Group where no one believes in God sometimes. That's what it feels like with this news. But we have those aces in our pocket. It's like, oh, we can look up, we can do an episode about like, Navy SEALs or like a movie or, I could interview a disgraced governor. But if you're Thomas Friedman, it's like every single week you've got to write about this bullshit. And at this point, like you've done everything. Like you're like, oh, I could write about how I saw a Kinko's in the Maldives. No, you did that 10 years ago. Oh, I can write about how like the new business traveler voter. You've done that 30 times. Oh, I can write about the lacrosse election. No, you've done that. So you just got to do this like shitty news, and now it's like he's in the quicksand of malaise.
I think
I got to say, I would like to hear what Thomas Friedman had have to say about the Franklin credit scandal. That'd be interesting.
Most things are fine. The fact that William Casey could kill himself this way shows that we have active seniors in this country. I know it's Colby. The fact that a man that old could be canoeing.
Look, so Frank Bruni made the transition from food columnist to opinion columnist. I think fucking Friedman should just go in the opposite direction. I just want to hear what kind of lunches he's having around DC. Give me the rundown. Just get the New York Times needs to have, like, on its website or something, like lunch chat, like boys chat, where everyone just is like, hey Kings, check out this burger I'm having. It should just be DC burger chat. What kind of burgers are you having? What were the fries like? Tomato on burger? Yay or nay? Let's get this debate started.
You know what? I would think I would check that out. That sounds like it would be a fun, especially like if you lived in the city or you were visiting it. It also is like a little impromptu guide to where to get the good grub.
I love it.
Well, that's like, yeah. I mean, every chat really has to have the one guy who's posting the most gruesome food of all time.
That could be Thomas Friedman for America.
It might be Thomas, but it's like Thomas is married to like a mall billionaire. So he's like going to the most insane food courts in the world. I think it's like Frank Bruni has the vibe of someone who's always just posting like a miserable bowl. I think he would be sort of the object of scorn in that group chat.
I would like to see Thomas Friedman's like gold flake covered Sbarro from the Dubai airport.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, I think his job gives him access to some very interesting lunch spots, and I think that's the direction he needs to go in. Just tell us what you're eating, King. Sound off in the chat, and let's get into, like, instead of talking about the far left is hampering the Democrats' ability to get 10% of Republican voters. Now, fuck that. Just start an interminable debate about barbecue wet food.
Absolutely. Mustard, dry rub. What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
hit us up in the comments.
Thomas, there is a secret. It's a secret to living, to being alive in this awful, scary time. A secret to a human dignity. How have all these people on Twitter, all of them, who their minds, the world, possibly their friends and family, they're all telling them to kill themselves. How have they not done it? By pretending that they have really vociferous opinions on food and arguing about it all the time on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You can get out there and be like, oh, if you like St. Louis barbecue, blah, 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 blah. That could be a great use of your time, and it could, more importantly, keep you from killing yourself at one of your wife's sharper images. Keep you from sticking your head in a massage chair and just putting it on a forbidden highest setting until your brain liquefies.
Just committing
suicide by mall cop.
Yeah. I love the idea of him committing doing a Benoit thing, but with the mall stuff.
Locking yourself in a tanning bed until you die of cancer.
He takes the Auntie Anne's pretzel gun and just shoots it into his mouth until it shoots his organs out of his asshole. Oh, he pretzeled his organs out of his body. getting beheaded with one of the dull swords from the mall sword shop.
Setting yourself on fire in front of a Hot Topic.
Yeah.
Just choking yourself to death on the penis-related paraphernalia from Spencer's Gifts.
Just trying to cut your own head off through paper cuts with the Tony Robbins book from Brookstone.
Well, there we go. For Thomas Friedman and everyone reading the New York Times, Matt, what was Cameron Diaz's last line from Cormac McCarthy's The Counselor? The last line of that movie.
Oh yes. She says, "There's nothing crueler than a coward. And the slaughter to come will probably be beyond our imagining."
Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's the Big Chapo. Chantillies.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Chantillies. All right, bye, everybody.
Goodbye, baby.
I got just basically a quick triple pack, a super fun pack of drivel from the New York Times this week. And I'm not going to read all of these things here, but I just want a little quick hits from the heavy hitters: Tom Friedman, Nicholas Kristof, Brett Stevens. And I'm not going to torture you guys too much with reading. I'm just going to read a paragraph from each of these bozos. and we'll just see what's up with the world of the New York Times. Beginning with, it's time to start discussing the unmentionable by Nicholas Kristof for the New York Times. He writes, Israel is in the headlines evoking tumultuous debate, yet one topic remains largely unmentionable. So let me gingerly raise it. Is it time to think about phasing out American aid for Israel down the road? Ooh, boy. What do we think? Wait, Kristof is cutting off the money spigot to Israel? Is he just this right-wing government to there? He's had enough of them? Because I guess in the minds of these people who are so horrified by the current Israeli government, they're like, it's basically because like they're making Israel look bad. And that's why we're beginning to broach the unmentionable topic of cutting off the ridiculous military and foreign aid. He says the $3.8 billion in annual assistance to Israel is more than 10 times as much as the U.S. sends to the far more populous nation of Niger, one of the poorest countries in the world and one under attack by jihadis. In countries like Niger, that sum could save hundreds of thousands of lives a year, or here in the United States, it could help pay for desperately needed childhood programs. There's a legitimate counter-argument that any reduction in aid could be perceived as a pullback of support for Israel in ways that might invite aggression by, say, Iran. That risk can be mitigated by approaching the issue as a long-term discussion for the next bilateral memorandum of understanding about aid due by 2028 and likely to stand for 10 years, and by reaching other security agreements with Israel. What do you make of this? Are we finally going to say enough is enough for Israel? Because Nicholas Kristof is beginning to feel a little bit disturbed.
He's not the only one. I mean, Martin Indyke just came out and said that too.
Yeah.
Like there actually are some people who have been carrying water for these motherfuckers for decades who are now like, okay, if you don't want this relationship, then we can do that. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, how far that goes. I mean, I assume at this point it's all just an attempt to sort of, snap them back to reality and maybe discipline them a little bit, but it doesn't seem like they're going to take any advice from anybody. They seem like they have decided on their course of action. I highly doubt, though, that it's anything other than a bluff by a bunch of, in their own minds, well-meaning wonk guys who think that anybody gives a shit what they write in the newspaper.
Right. I was surprised to see that, Martin Indyk and there were a few other guys that were on that. It was a surprising group of people that you would not expect to see. But yeah, I generally agree that it's a ploy. It's a ploy to hopefully make Israel behave more normally, make them remember that they're supposed to be a proxy. But I mean, it's way too far along for them to act normal now.
No, there's no normality happening in Israel.
They're okay, if you're Israel and you're accustomed to being able to with American politics, go as far as an election on the Evanston, Illinois City Council and be like, this guy's anti-Israel, spend and campaign against him. You're not pulling back from that. You're not you're not pulling back from your ability to make people go to your stupid joint addresses to Congress that everyone has to go to for some reason. I mean, maybe one day in the distant future, this may actually become something that's possible. The fact that these guys aren't immediately being killed for suggesting this is heartening to some extent, but I would need to see something concrete before I really get my hopes up.
Well, hold your hopes right there because Thomas Friedman's coming through. Only Biden can save Israel now. Well, if that's the case, Israel, you guys had a good run. But pack it in. Take a lap because you're the I don't know. I mean, even leaving aside, because once Thomas Friedman starts weighing in on this, it just that canary is choking out its last breaths. But I don't know. What's the over-under on Israel existing in 50 years' time if they continue with this shit?
I mean, they got nukes, so they'll either still be there or they'll just be a big crater in the ground.
Well, Joe, I mean, I think they'll exist, but they'll. I mean, it's going to be super Russia. meaning that it'll be like a mega kleptocratic, like rump state that's run on pure graft. And I don't know, the process where everyone is selling each other nukes will be fun, but it will be basically like, super Russia, which is kind of appropriate given the immigration patterns there.
I just saw Oppenheimer yesterday, and I've decided that I'm a YIMBY for nukes now. I'm like, yes, build nukes. Everyone build atomic devices. We need to just zoning laws have really capped the number of nuclear devices and detonations that anyone can do, and I think that's wrong. So I'm saying yes to atomic weapons everywhere. We just got to let nuclear weapons developers build enough of them and give them to everybody. The market will sort of eventually nuclear weapons will trickle down to the people who really need them. But there are a lot of people that really need an A-bomb, and we're not building any right now. So that's a problem.
Hezbollah actually they got around that in a very clever way a few years ago. There was some dispute with Israel, and they pointed a bunch of missiles at an Israeli nuclear power plant. And they were like, we may not have a nuke per se, but we're prepared to turn this into a nuke. And it worked, apparently. It was something I heard on Radio War Nerd. I wish I remembered the details a little better, but I always thought that was cool.
I just want to read you just quick from Thomas Friedman here. Dear President Biden. He opens up his columns like it's a letter. Dear President Biden. In October 1973, the armies of Egypt and Syria launched a surprise pincer
Don't
attack.
tell him that. He forgot it, and he's going to forget as soon as you finish telling it to him again.
As the Israeli army fell low on ammunition, your predecessor, Richard Nixon, ordered a massive airlift of weaponry that helped save the only Jewish democracy from being destroyed from the outside. 50 years later, Mr. President, this Jewish democracy urgently needs another airlift to save it from being destroyed from the inside. It needs an urgent resupply of hard truths, something only you can provide. I love Thomas Friedman so much. Nobody is doing it like he is. Mr. President, sir, we need
500 cc's of facts, stat.
We need an airlift of stern talking tos now.
Have some more falafel, Connor.
He says, but I'm afraid this Israeli government needs another dose of your tough love, not just from your heart, but from the heart of U.S. strategic interests as well.
That ought to do it, I think.
Yeah.
He's just going to straight talk it to him. He's going to stop halfway through and start reverently describing the 1956 Ford Fairlane, and that's going to do the job.
Look, I'm about practical solutions. And look, when Thomas Friedman and Nicholas Kristof are saying Israel needs some tough love, then holy shit, are they really pissing people off? But look, we're not going to cut off our military or foreign aid to Israel. We're going to let them continue to bulldoze settlements and fucking steal people's houses and shoot ambulance drivers and whatever the fuck they want. Here's one practical thing I think America should do to put Israel on notice, and that's kidnap Jonathan Pollard and send his ass back to jail in America.
Yeah.
Just render his ass back to fucking the feds. Because fuck that guy. Did he literally proliferate nuclear weapon technology?
Yeah, that was basically it. I mean,
actually, no, I support that now that I'm a YIMBY. So I take that back, but still, his ass is going back to the feds.
Well, the supposed deal with Pollard is that the nuclear information, Israel didn't want, Israel was already had nukes or they were developing them, but they were selling that to Russia, so Russia would give them a population transfer.
Right.
So they could get a much needed white people injection. That was the whole deal with that. It's insane that they let him out. I mean, Robert Hansen. It's really nuts. Robert Hansen, same type of thing.
He just died.
Just died in prison. Jonathan Pollard, he's got a fat pension in Israel too.
So they would cough him up, send him back. Send him back to fucking jail.
Just send a SEAL Team 6 to just swipe his ass. Bag him and then zip him up on a helicopter and get him out of there.
A Navy SEAL ice cream truck.
He was those are my favorite comic strips of all time.
The Dry Bones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dry Bones, the Zionist webcomic, where it would just like there are like 20 comics where there's no joke. It's just the main character of Dry Bones, which is just like a 50-year-old bald Jewish guy going, "Please, Obama, free Jonathan Pollard."
He hates Mondays.
Yeah.
It would be anything that would make the Dry Bones guy like do a suicide bombing or something would be worth trying, I think.
All right, and then finally, this is Brett Stevens. He's not talking about Israel, but he is turning in this column, what I learned in Ukraine. So you know you're in for some good shit here. He says here, last week, a friend asked me what I could learn from a 4-day trip to Ukraine I was planning that I couldn't glean just by reading the news. It was a fair question. With the trip now behind me, I can answer. I learned that Ukrainians have no interest in turning their victimization into an identity. I learned that for all the aid we've given Ukraine, we are the true beneficiaries in the relationship, and they are the true benefactors. Ben Wallace, Britain's usually thoughtful defense minister, suggested, he moved on from the Pistons, I guess. Well, good, still playing defense. Suggested after this month's NATO summit that Ukrainians should show more gratitude to their arms suppliers. That gets the relationship backward. NATO countries are paying for their long-term security in money, which is cheap, and munitions, which are replaceable. Ukrainians are counting their costs in lives and limbs lost. Is our Brett Stevens learning? I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, they're definitely getting the better deal of this fucking bargain.
Do you know we're in the Wikipedia article for Dry Bones?
Really?
Yeah.
What does it say?
I'm surprised Dry Bones has a Wikipedia article, but we're really just the entire criticism section.
We're the only people who've ever criticized it.
Yeah,
because it's that good.
Yeah, it's one sentence. The comic strip was criticized in an episode of the podcast Chapo Trap House for its alleged poor quality and racist undertones.
It's alleged poor quality? You could say alleged racist undertones, but I mean, look at that.
He can't be bothered to have two circles for the two eyes on the guy. It's a Venn diagram. It sucks.
Oh, here's what we're going to talk about. How about Vivek Ramaswamy? How about he's creeping up there in the polls? I mean, like, he's tied with DeSantis in some of these fucking polls, and he's getting a lot of burn right now. I think, like, what do you guys make of Vivek and as a possible DeSantis substitute? I mean, obviously every bit is doomed and stupid, but what do you make about Vivek? Because I've noticed that, like, now that he's getting a lot of burn, and people are like, this young whippersnapper's onto something. Certain segments of the Christian right are like, he worships a fucking cow. He's like, he's not going to swear on the Bible. He's a fucking Hindu. Like, how many lives has this guy led already? Fuck him.
Yeah, but he's trying to lean into it. He's like, yeah, but gay people are not good. That we have that in common. It doesn't matter if it was Jesus or the elephant guy. We're all in agreement on the gays.
I don't know. Do we think Ramaswamy has more sauce than we originally thought, or is this a sauce mirage?
No,
Yeah.
this is more like this has more to do with DeSantis sucking.
Yeah,
than Vivek being anything. Vivek continues his perhaps fruitful campaign to one day be the Republican Secretary for Transportation. One day. Years from now.
Yeah, I think he might be the Mayor Pete of this thing, but he'll never get that kind of media phenomenon because of media's liberal bias. But he could just, stick around longer than you would think for his original profile, and then get some minor post as a reward.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The creator of Dry Bones alleges that him and 4 other computer programmers built an artificial intelligence program that had, quote, the personalities of a Jewish mother and a Jewish uncle called Mom and Murray.
Okay, I take back every bad thing I've ever said about Ted Kaczynski. He was right.
Is it like? Do you think is he lying? He has to be lying. Like, there's no way you did that, Dry Bones. I don't believe you.
I cannot wait for the Mom and Murray AI to take control of Israel's nuclear arsenal.
Skynet started kvetching on August 28th, 2023. Should we leave it there, or should I just briefly talk about this Thomas Friedman column? I'll only read like a paragraph of it. We got time for that?
Yeah, please do.
All right, just to close things out today, I do want to do just a brief reading series courtesy of Thomas Friedman. We haven't talked about him in a minute, but he came through yesterday with a really great column, op-ed piece in the Times, headline: "How I Describe Myself Politically these Days."
I've always wondered.
So in case you were wondering,
the question of the ages, brother.
And I just really want to bring it up because it's the first paragraph is really something special. He writes, "I struggle these days whenever someone asks me for my political affiliation. But if you really force me, I'd describe myself as a Waymo Democrat."
He still got it.
Still got it.
And I was like, what the fuck is a Waymo Democrat? Thankfully, Thomas fills me in. Waymos,
I'm a DoorDash Democrat.
Yeah.
Bro. What the fuck are you talking about?
Waymos are the self-driving electric taxis started by Google. My party's bumper sticker would read, "A chicken in every pot and a Waymo in every city."
Oh my God.
And our TV ads would say, "Trump is for him. His grievances, his revenge, his corruption, and for bringing old stuff back again, like coal and gasoline cars. Waymo Democrats are for we the people and reinventing American industry anew." And like I read this and I was just like, wow, I thought abundance was bad branding, but Waymo Democrat, which is like, but I have to credit I have to credit Chris with this because Thomas Friedman is cutting his own throat here. Because if he says his entire political affiliation is based around replacing all cabs with Waymo driverless vehicles, how is he going to gain political insight to fill his columns with?
Exactly.
But okay, yeah, Terrence. So I thought that, and I was like, that's incredible. But then I thought for a second, and like, no. What's going to happen is that in the Waymos, they're going to have a chat GPT so that you can have conversations with taxi drivers that confirm your political beliefs and common spoken, plain, average Joe language, where I'd just be like, I talked to my Waymo on the ride back from the airport, and it said, that we should be we should be cutting taxes on innovators and job creators.
Well, Will, there's a second part to that too, man. I think in the second paragraph is some shit of that opening, the opening of that piece where I forget what he says, but he says something like he doesn't believe that when he sees these rallies with AOC and Bernie railing against Trump, he doesn't believe that they can imagine a future. And it's like, dog, like your future is completely devoid of any humanity, right? Like it truly is the abundance doctrine because they want this like Star Trek kind of future where they believe that we can have companies manufacturing pills and like orbital factories, right? In space, right? They believe that we'll have all electric cars and shit, but it sort of just oversteps like the actual material, like political economic implications of how that would arise. So it's just like, dude, you just want treats.
Aaron,
treats is what you want.
Aaron, but actually, he says like how we're going to get there is by being nicer to Silicon Valley billionaires. And the line here says, when I listen to
enslave you for life, bro.
Yeah. When I listen to AOC and Sanders, I don't hear them solving for the future. So much of what they say is about lazily bashing billionaires, along with defending Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid from Trump, Elon Musk chainsaw. Please save all of that. But if Democrats are going to again be the party of the working class and unify the country more, they need a strategy for expanding the pie of work by expanding new industries.
Nobody wants to work. What are you talking about?
Not protecting the pie of benefits. And this is another great Friedman metaphor here: the pie of work versus the pie of benefits. But you know what? They're both good pies. It's like apple pie and cherry pie.
You get a pizza, bro, from fucking Domino's or Papa John's, bro. Do you want the pie of benefits?
That's like why I love Thomas Friedman compared to like the abundance guys, compared to like Noah Smith or any of these guys who are like just as stupid but just don't have the charm.
Yeah,
it's because like the bizarre mixed metaphors and analogies, like the average Friedman column, he will imply that he is a herded livestock, that he is a robot, that he is a dog. Like he's all over the place. That thing of like Trump is for him genius But what I love about him compared to the abundance guys is the abundance guys, it's as delusional as those like Palantir guys that are like, if you support Trump, like we're for, nuclear aviation and space colonization, all these things that like we're supposedly going to achieve. We're going to get to Cyberpunk 2077 with no deficit spending.
Yeah. We're going to colonize Mars and balance the budget at the same time.
Yeah. But like Friedman truly is more of a traditionalist than J.D. Vance could ever be, because he's like, no, the future, we've already lived in the future. And it was the year 1997. And we just need to do that. Like the cultural and economic conditions that cause us to value pets.com as being worth $5 trillion. we need to live in that forever. We will live in Mykoshi, the prison of souls, in 1997. It will always be the 1999 Super Bowl where you get an ad for a company where all they do is register a single domain.
Yo, you're so right, dog. Because it reminds me of, I've talked about on the show, but it reminds me of these abundance guys, I think, like, and Thomas Friedman as well as an offshoot. They have an obsession with what Grafton Tanner in the book The Circle of the Snake. I've mentioned this book so many times, but he talks about pre-recession nostalgia. And it really comes to like sort of like the end of the 20th century, right? The beginning of the 21st century. This is when like even me, right, as like a kid then, preteen, I was like, dude, we're gonna colonize the moon, right? We're gonna have like AI, we're gonna have like stem cell research and clones and shit. And they want to live in that like that time that was trapped in amber without actually questioning why the 21st century transpired the way it did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do I need to point out that the image of a Waymo is no one at the wheel? Like there's no one at the wheel. That's what kind of Democrat I am.
Yeah. Listen to this. He says, while I don't enjoy seeing anyone put out of work, taxi drivers are not a growth industry. The brass neck on this guy, his whole career is based on taxi drivers. And now he's like, they're not a growth industry, so I really don't mind to see them.
Meanwhile, the guy in power is like just making these guys feel like the belle of the ball. There's only like 9 of them left. There's like more Thatchers and goat herds than coal miners. Yeah.
Also, that's such a crazy thing to say, because like I feel like a big job for a lot of human history was just ferrying motherfuckers, bro.
Yeah.
Just being a taxi driver.
Yeah.
Like, just fucking be like taking people on horseback or some shit.
Crossing the river Styx,
Exactly.
He says, well, I mean, we've got to raise tariffs on what you have to pay the ferryman because it's ridiculous to die. Thomas Friedman writes, he continues, he says, whereas the number of better paying jobs supporting a robo-taxi network, AI researchers, engineers, data scientists, chip designers, blue-collar mechanics, electrical engineers, marketers, maintenance workers, software designers, data center construction workers constitute a growth industry with good incomes for people. Finally, I can't think of a more obvious moonshot project to spur advanced manufacturing in America generally than making it our goal to have Waymos or Robo-Teslas or any other brand of self-driving taxis that we can make operating in every city in America. Because if you look under the hood of any Waymo, it is made up of chips, batteries, sensors, and other components that also go into every part of blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on.
But again, with the abundance guys, but who are the people that are like mining that cobalt, right? Who are the people that are like getting you those resources that you could have this glorious future? The shit that you don't want to fucking deal with.
Waymo miners.
We're gonna have Waymo miners.
That is a great point, because it's like, even in like this completely fantastical thing where, by the way, I love how arbitrary all of it is. Like, AI is supposedly in this future so great that we can now, like, self-driving cars, none of the problems that we see now are even on the horizon. It is as distant a memory as, like, trying to position the bunny ears on your TV correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then if it's so great that we just need to get rid of taxi drivers, why do we need human construction workers then? Or marketers for that matter, if it's that great. Felix, but then he also says, well, all these human jobs that will constitute a growth industry and a great labor market, they'll be high paying. Why? Like, why do you think that?
They'll be high paying until they can be replaced by another Waymo. And here's the thing, like, Just to close it out, he says, remember back in the 60s, the moon was our destination, but the space race project spun off all sorts of new technologies from CT scans to MRIs and more, including GPS technology that is used by Waymo cars to navigate today. A giant robo-taxi industry in America and its ecosystem would surely spin off all kinds of other technologies that can sense, digitize, connect, blah, blah, blah. It goes on like that. But like,
you know what else was happening in the 60s, bro? Like black people getting fucking lynched and shit, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like not being able to go to visit certain businesses and shit, man.
But I mean, I guess the point I want to make is that, like, yeah, it's true that the space race did, give us ICBMs. It gave us, it gave us nuclear weapons,
GPS.
basically. Yeah, right. GPS, stuff like that. But the thing is, that was a goal that was like, yeah, we put human beings on the moon. That's pretty amazing. Self-driving cars solve a problem that doesn't exist.
Yes.
Why? Because people can already drive cars and drive them well. Better than Waymos, in fact.
Right, but I think also too, it's like we put people on the moon because we were trying to create ICBM missiles that would go halfway around the world. Like the fact that the space race, of course, gave us all this amazing consumer technology, but it was also wrapped up in political economy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And geopolitics and shit like that. And this is the thing that these people don't want to confront. Right, they want some sort of technological superiority with forgetting the fact that, well, who is being exploited? What is it being used for? And is the endeavor truly humanitarian? To be honest, man. And I think they really want to go back to the 60s where it's like, well, you could say racist shit, but also we went to the fucking moon and we did amazing things and we didn't deal with the problems of society as they existed. But except this is even worse. Because you have a driverless car that's going to crash into another driverless car and probably kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like, I do think part of what attracts people to like the Trump movement and part of like the wish casting for this sort of like popularist, any rising global temperature is worth preventing China as a hegemon type thinking. The thing that they want about the 1960s the most is the idea of an external enemy. Like all these people are Straussians now.
Yep.
It's a complete ideological victory because they do think like, okay, there was this like social strife and we still had stupids in this country. But when there was a consensus enemy, there could be consensus good and bad and reality to some extent.
And like to a certain extent, without a consensus enemy, we wouldn't have gotten the Civil Rights Act or any of the liberal reforms that took place in the Cold War were done because we had the external pressure of the Soviet Union.
Like most of the good, like when people now, the conversation was before they totally like kind of kick the tariff stuff under the fridge like a bunch of spilled ice. It was on this idea of like a manufacturing economy where you could buy a house off of like a year's income. And like, yes, the way that the economy was organized did help in individual purchasing power with the middle class. But also like a lot of those concessions to labor existed because we had to give people something so they wouldn't become communists. In the minds of like capital owners. Same thing with we talked about it with Greg Grandin. The reason we have solid state TV cameras is because we were working on a very early TV guided bomb in the AGM-62 Walleye. Like all these things, whether it is workers' rights and relative economic well-being or civil rights or technology, they did exist because there was an external enemy to, bargain against, to compete with technologically. But I guess with Friedman, all the abundance guys and all the Trump people, they want to replace that with either China or just Islam in general or Palestine, which is already insane because this is after we have given up any of this industrial capability. And while anyone who could come to this country and help make something that would be as amazing now as a solid state TV camera was in 1960, you are getting thrown into a cell and beaten with belts, and they're going to force you to read Dan Bongino's book.
Bro,
but Friedman's thing is so, again, why he's so much better than these guys. He's going, we don't need an external, like the thing that will replace the Cold War, like the grandest contest, the longest running contest of like ideologies in the modern age, will be it will be just as motivational for us to try to get Waymo in Seattle. Like he's not a genius. He's one of the dumbest guys who's ever lived, but he's like a true unique mind in that way.
Much better writer too. And by that I mean
I'm just trying to get in the Friedman mindset, and it's just like, we don't need a new Cold War. We need cold pie. And by that I mean pie that can be divided more. I don't know, cold pockets. All right. We should leave it there for today. Thanks again to Aaron, Terrence, and Tom, the Trillbillies, for stopping by. Always a pleasure to talk to you guys. And please check out the Trillbillies. Would you like to plug anything? If people want more Trillbillies, where should they go?
Just search on iTunes, podcast, Spotify, Trillbilly Workers Party. You can also find us on Patreon. We're on there as well.
Anywhere fine podcasts or listen.
Always good to talk to y'all, yo.
Yeah, thanks.